Good afternoon. I, CA Murtuza Kachwala, Secretary, WIRC, welcome all the participants to this second day of opportunities for young members. And I also recognize presence of today's first speaker, CA Mahendra Balasaria. Mahendra is going to cover the opportunities on the IT domain, including the cyber security. I am also joined with my colleague CA Shekhar Patwardhan and CA Sanjay Nikam. We have second speaker Dhruvo today on data analytics, artificial intelligence, etc. And then the third 1 hour will be panel discussion on Ind AS IFRS. So that is the program for today. And thank you very much for the overwhelming response yesterday also, and very good feedback which we received. And please continue giving us the feedback. And if there is any improvement opportunity also, we would love to hear from you. With that, let me now request CA Shekhar Patwardhan to please give his opening remarks and introduce today's first speaker, CA Mahendra Balasaria. Shekhar, over to you.
Thank you, Murtuza bhai. Good afternoon, everyone. I, CA Shekhar, for the meeting on young members mentorship, an initiative by WRC along with the Professional Development Committee of ICAI. It's really a wonderful initiative to mentor our young members, and today we are starting with the most interesting session, that is career opportunities in information technology. Perhaps it is the only sector which is creating a great amount of revenue as far as the economy is concerned in this COVID situations. Perhaps it is the only sector where the work from home perfectly suits. Those who are working in this sector are in fact working more efficiently than earlier. Today we are meeting in a virtual format because of the wonders of the information technology. And I'm sure there are a number of opportunities as far as the chartered accountants are concerned, because we have a great domain knowledge, great financial knowledge. So that is why there are a number of opportunities awaiting as far as the IT sector is concerned. To guide the young members, we have with us CA Mahendra Balasaria. CA Mahendra Balasaria has more than 19 years of experience in auditing, advisory and technology consulting role. He has a rich experience of working with leading technology companies and leading consulting organizations. Currently, he is working as a managing director, SAP Consulting, India and Middle East for a leading consultancy organization. With these words, I present before you CA Mahendra Balasaria and request him to
I think we have a little network issue with Shekhar. Thank you, Shekhar, for the lovely introduction and for setting the tone for today. And may I now request Mahendra. Mahendra, you can get started, Mahendra. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Murtuza. Thank you, Mr. Shekhar, for providing me this opportunity to present this session and share my experience with our young members of the CA profession. Before I jump on to this interesting topic, just maybe would want to share about my journey, as a chartered accountant, and how did I, being a chartered accountant, move to the technology world. I passed out in the year 2000 as a chartered accountant, when technology, obviously, India was on the verge of embarking the entire technology journey, and at least I passed out being focusing more in the entire auditing and the industry domain being the focus. So I started my journey as a chartered accountant working with one of the leading consulting or a big four organizations, starting my career into auditing, like most of, would like, immediately would do post qualification. I think it was a great experience, working and starting a career with such organization. But I think I always had a knack of, interest in technology and being in the auditing, I observed clients using a lot of technology in those days, and ERP used to be the buzzword in early 2000s when clients would look at ERP is like SAP's, Oracle, Microsoft for running their businesses. So that kind of fascinated me. And after spending a couple of years into auditing, I decided to, take a plunge into getting into technology. And that's when I joined one of the leading German companies into the entire technology space. And this is where my entire journey of the technology world, getting into ERP started. And I joined as a consultant into SAP, specifically in the finance domain. So I spent almost close to 5-6 years into that journey, working back with this German company. And then I realized that I may not be utilizing my full potential of being a chartered accountant purely into technology. And I should be looking at a career which gives me both, or which utilizes my skills, both of being a chartered accountant and as well as my knowledge of having worked in technology. And that's when I joined one of the leading big fours back again into the technology consulting practice. So I spent almost close to 12 years with the leading with this company, working across the entire spectrum of consulting, right from strategy to business implementation, auditing, analytics. So pretty much the entire gamut of technology services that as a chartered accountant, I believe we can play a role in. And currently, I am heading the entire SAP consulting practice for one of the leading consulting organizations. And I think this entire journey of 19 years has given me a multicultural experience of having worked not just in India but globally with diverse set of professionals, with professionals with different skills coming out from different geographies, different cultures. So it's really been a great enriching experience, of how I transition from, let's say, a freshly qualified chartered accountant to today purely focusing on the entire technology consulting services. So having said that, I thought I'll just, before I jump on to saying what are the different career opportunities for young chartered accountants, I thought I'll just give you a perspective of what really today the entire information technology component involves. So if we talk information technology overall, let's say, broadly there are 4 pillars, and this is not exhaustive. This is, these are some examples. So if you look at the entire components, you would have a hardware, you would have software entire as an area.
Recording has started.
And if we talk about hardware typically is all about servers. We're talking of mobile devices, all different network systems. Today we see all the computers, laptops, all the different devices that we are currently, using. If we talk about the softwares, I think again there are a plethora of applications that currently, are available in the market, and different geographies use different kind of applications. Some of the large ones like Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, Infor. There are many such ERP applications. Be it around network security on your firewall related softwares or various data privacy or security related softwares. The different desktop applications like your Office 365. So your various applications that we use in our laptops, etc. And then you have all these mobile apps. Every day we keep seeing those new mobile apps coming in. All of this obviously needs to have a solid infrastructure, and that's where the entire infrastructure plays a huge amount of role in the entire information technology, be it around our internet, telecoms, or, so the last few years, we've seen the entire cloud being the big talk, and every company is looking at moving on cloud. So cloud computing, data centers, all of these have been key components for driving information technology. Now, while all this hardware, software, infrastructure, these are the key elements, I think one of the real focus is the entire services that plays a huge role in enabling all of these, be it hardware, software, or infrastructure. And that's where, right from designing the strategy, what strategy a companies should adopt, be it the end user companies, be it the companies who are into innovations of technology, what should be the strategy? Once the strategy is defined, then obviously how do you design? So the entire design and deployment becomes relatively key for deploying all these technologies, infrastructure, etc. And obviously, it's not just enough to deploy a technology, but it's important that you need to continuously keep maintaining and enhancing or improving the technologies as well. So all these elements become important in the entire information technology. Now, while these are the different components, and I briefly talked about services, I would just elaborate more on the entire technology consulting services that, let's say, are relevant in the entire technology consulting space, including cybersecurity. So if you look at, it's a slightly busy slide, but if I have to talk about, the technology consulting, where does it start? So it really starts from defining the entire strategy and managing the operations. Okay. So for any organization, if you look at, until and unless there is a defined strategy in place, right from companies who are investing in technology, companies who are innovators of technology, be it Facebook, Google, SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, be it any technology, if it's important for everyone to have this strategy in place. Now, having had a strategy again is not enough. It's important to have a right governance and risk management framework as well around managing the strategy. Important to be able to execute the strategy well and have a proper governance or a program management around the strategy. And last, on the strategy side, it's important to have a right operations management around delivery of this or execution of the strategy. So this entire strategy and operations is one of the huge areas in the entire consulting space. And I believe this is one area where, as chartered accountants, again, there is definitely a role to play. For organizations who are, let's say, users of technology, it is not enough to have, or let's say, adopt a technology. For them to be able to adopt the technology, it's important they have their defined processes in place. They have the entire governance mechanism in place, the entire security and privacy of information in place, and more importantly, the entire user community being able to use the technology. So this is definitely an area where the domain expertise or the functional expertise that, as chartered accountants, we gain is something we can definitely leverage and help organizations in defining the right strategy in their respective business functions. The second area, if I talk about, is the entire enterprise application solution. Now, when I talk about enterprise application solutions, this is more specific to various, let's say, today if you go to any companies, you would mostly see the entire business operations are being managed either on SAP platform or Oracle, Microsoft, Navision. We have small or medium sector of enterprises who would be using, let's say, Tally, for example, or there could be other various similar applications in the market to run the business operations. Now, while again, these applications could be off-the-shelf applications which are available from these companies, but it's very important to be able to implement these applications rightly in the enterprises and have the processes defined appropriately. Now, if the applications are not implemented well, the processes are not mapped well, that is where it can lead to implementation failures. And this is something, there are enough data that's available for various reasons why implementations fail for many of the organizations. So again, as CAs, this is an area where definitely, again, we can play a role in with our entire experience of understanding domain processes, having deep understanding of the business. I think this is another area where we can actually, play a role, or CAs can play a role in defining these right processes for the organization, which can then be enabled through these different technologies. There is a role, for not just from defining processes here, but you can even look at becoming a functional consultant or the subject matter expert who can bring in both a mixture of business knowledge as well as technical knowledge, post acquisition of the relevant skills around IT. Again, as I said, it's not just enough to have defined or implemented such technologies. It's also important to be able to manage these implementations, have the right security and controls around such enterprise applications. And this is where even, as part of our, let's say, the auditing role, be it part of internal audit functions or be it part of our external audit functions or purely as independent role, it becomes a key thing wherein we can play a role in helping organizations achieve the right amount of securities and controls. There could be again various point solution implementations, which again, is another area where there can be an opportunity. Apart from these, there are various, let's say, custom solutions that we are seeing today. Today, if you look at the adoption of technology, whether it's in a taxation field, so we can already see our GST, landscape, a GST regulation entirely being working in an automated environment or on a technology platform. With as recent as some of the recent changes where organizations could file returns using WhatsApp. So that's the kind of adoption of technology that's happening in organizations, whether it's around taxation, whether it's around financial closing or preparation of financial statements, or even managing day-to-day business operations. And that's where custom business solutions are having, playing a role. A lot of these entire cloud-related solutions are coming in. Companies are having their own websites, being used. Data today has become one of the key, let's say, people say data is gold today, or data is, the next, let's say, wealth for organizations. And it's very important that companies start managing the data well. They definitely would need a lot of support in terms of analyzing the entire data. And from having, the entire governance over data, companies also need a lot of assurance around the entire accuracy of data, completeness of data, or the reliability of data. And that's where, again, our role as, let's say, chartered accountants, maybe comes pretty important again, defining strategy on usage of data. How can organizations use the data to draw meaningful insights to grow the business and manage the business? How can they have the right protocols around the usage of data, accessibility of data, who can access the entire information, and having the right analytics around that. So that's another area that's becoming key as we see more and more. Obviously, with all this entire advent of information, technology and new innovations coming in, the entire cybersecurity and privacy, with respect to all these areas, is becoming pretty critical, very relevant, and one of the most focused areas for companies to ensure the data breaches don't happen. They are secured from malicious attacks, so that the data information is not lost. And we would have heard so many such instances in the past where companies' systems would have got compromised, either through hacking or various malwares or things coming in. And that's where this entire cybersecurity and privacy becomes critical. You would also hear a lot of countries have come out with their own regulations around privacy, like GDPR in European Union. In Middle East, there's a separate data privacy laws coming in. And globally, everyone is focusing on securing the privacy of information or data. And the last area is all around various cloud solution that's coming in and having the entire strategy, architecture around that. We will be hearing a lot of these emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, RPAs, etc. And all of these are playing a huge role in how companies are, embarking on their entire digital transformation journey, and automating or leveraging technology, in automating most of the business operations. And this is where the traditional business models, the traditional ways of doing business, all of that are being challenged today by organizations, and companies are looking at new ways of doing business. So it's important to understand the entire gamut of these services, and in almost each of these areas, there is a role to play for chartered accountant. So I think in the current circumstances, and that's where if you look at with the entire advent, it becomes pretty important, to have a real understanding of IT by any chartered accountant. And I think that is really the need of the hour. Gone are the days when, just having an experience of business, accounting, process, or, tax, regulatory is enough. In each of these areas today, most of the areas are becoming automated, or there's a technology intervention happening, whether it is by the regulators, whether it's by government or organizations. There is an adoption of technology in each of these areas, and hence not having an understanding of IT or the usage of IT, is obviously not the right thing today. If you look at today, what is really driving the business? Most of the business efficiencies today are being driven by web-based technologies. The traditional business models, as I said, are really changing. Now, I have been working with a lot of clients, and today, even the entire revenue models, the way companies used to sell their products, are changing. So traditionally, for example, we used to earlier have all these entire taxis and all of that, where, now with these Ubers and Olas, the entire app-based taxis coming and changing, whether it is around your, booking accommodation, you have all these apps, those have come in. Today we are able to order our groceries using mobile-based apps. So today, if you look at the traditional business models, those have changed. Automotive companies maybe, traditionally would sell vehicles. Now companies are looking at even, having leasing as an option. So, so technology is driving a behavioral change, and not just in people but around processes, business models, everything. And that's where again it becomes pretty critical to have this understanding. Now, big data analysis, again, I talked about data being the supreme driver of business. Now, gone are the days when we used to do auditing using, let's say, we used to start by doing vouching or checking of transactions for our clients. Today, most of the companies, even from an auditing profession perspective, use applications, etc. And a lot of it also is becoming exception-based auditing rather than the traditional, just purely sample-based auditing. So that's again, that's where data is playing a huge role in, analyzing the entire data and then arriving at information. Now, more and more we keep hearing of big data, and as we move on to, let's say, 5G as technology, so, 5G, etc. coming in, there will be far more exchange of information that would happen globally. And that's where it would become even more important for organizations to have a complete understanding of data, to be able to draw meaningful insights out of the data and use artificial intelligence and other technologies to drive business. And last, obviously, it's very important to really have trust in this entire, future, which would be artificially intelligence powered. So we may be utilizing all the technologies, all the possible things, but with the advent of technology, we are also exposing, or let's say, leaving a lot of scope for organizations to ensure that are my risks being addressed? Is my technology foolproof? All my scenarios, has it been considered? And that's where having the right trust on this entire environment is pretty critical. And that's where, again, CAs have a huge role to play in providing that trust or helping organizations build trust in this technology environment. Now, this is, let's say, why it's important to understand, but it's also important to understand what really are the key skills, that's driving behavior, or that's, important in the current world. So I think the first and foremost area is being employable. And that's where, I think having just a domain experience or is not enough. It's important to be having the right understanding or the right soft skills around communication, presentation, critical thinking, which is becoming very important, or the ability to make right decisions. It's becoming very important as one of the key skills for any professional. Apart from this, I think if you, let's say, you're really looking at moving on to looking for a role in IT, it's important to have the right technical skills. So obviously, understanding of programming languages, computer softwares or hardwares or architectures or various internet principles. And obviously this is just a sample list. There can be many, many more such technical skills which are critical. And it's important to develop those or build those, or acquire those technical skills as well. The third area obviously is, having the right technical skills, soft skills is great. But I think the key thing is to have a specialization. And that's where acquiring the entire either industry specific skills or specialization in a specific domain is also pretty important and critical in this entire journey. So I think it's important that you focus on acquiring these right skills in case if you're looking at embarking on venturing into the IT. So what are the career options if you can look at, and what are the different roles that you can look at, IT, where chartered accountants can play a role? Now, I think we all understand IFRS, GST, data privacy, etc. I think this is again an area where chartered accountants can play a role in being functional consultants, helping organizations, identifying the really doing gap assessments, for example, on adoption of IFRS, on implementation of IFRS. So let's say if having the entire thorough understanding of IFRS and various other gap regulations, it's very important if, let's say, they need to be, technology enabled in any organization. And that's where I see a huge potential in this area. I think the second area where you can look at is being techno-functional consultants in IT. And that's how I started my entire journey in IT. So if you have interest in getting into the implementation side of IT businesses, again, being techno-functional consultant could be an area you can leverage. Today, obviously different industries have different requirements. So banking and insurance have very different needs of technology adoption compared to manufacturing businesses. And that's again, you can look at being industry SMEs in these businesses. Pre-sales, for example, is very important. So a lot of companies are coming out with their various technology, innovations, products, everything in the market. But if you're not able to market the products appropriately, if let's say companies are not able to create a business proposition for organizations, it becomes very difficult for companies to adopt such. So the entire pre-sales and marketing again becomes an area where consultants, where CAs can play a role. And they are probably today really well suited to carve out business stories or business propositions, for our clients. Management consulting, again, needless to say, this is an area that, CAs have already been playing a role. And now with technology being more and more embedded in everything, I think this again becomes a very significant area, whether it's around cybersecurity, be it around data privacy, whether it is how, for example, bots. Now a lot of companies are implementing bots, but how are companies managing risks around the bot? So it's just one example. We can play a role, or in the entire or auditing the entire network license. So there are various areas. As in, audit, we can play a role in consulting. Entrepreneurs, obviously, it's a startup world today. People are coming up with new innovations every day, and the entire business understanding is pretty relevant in this area. So whether it's Center of Excellence, cybersecurity, analytics, treasury, new age technologies around RPA, blockchain, there's a role to play everywhere, young professional. Social media, I think e-commerce is becoming huge these days. Even in the social media audits, we can play a role. I think why just even play a role in consulting and I think the entire innovation and incubation is another area where we can look at, using our knowledge, how can we maybe get into and create new products or new innovations to make, in this world. And obviously the entire potential area I've talked about a lot. I won't spend much time, but be it around strategy, ERP, performance management, supply chain, governance. So there's a role in every potential area. I think this is my last area before, I'm happy to take questions. So for me, I think, what has been my learning from my experience, if you're looking to switch to IT, I think having an entire experience in a domain or industry is important before you decide to jump onto IT. I think the entire experience of working in an industry or specific domain, it gives you a better understanding of the business, of the environment, and it helps us appreciate our clients. It helps us appreciate the organization's needs far better from a technology perspective, when we switch on to IT. So to me, I think it's very important to have the right experience in domain as well as industry. Secondly, as I said, having a specialization is important. In current environment, we just can't remain generic and be, let's say, just knowing everything. It's important to have a specialization. Could be any area around cyber, whether it has to be around analytics, could be around strategy, could be specifically around financial closing, planning, could be any area. I think the list is endless. But it's important to have a specialization in specific areas. The third area is, I think it's important to have a fascination for technology. Now, let's say if you don't enjoy technology, if you don't, love technology, I think the normal tendency would be to kind of not take an interest in the changing technology environment. And that's where it's important to have a fascination for technology. And trust me, people who have a mix of the entire business and technology consulting or skills, they definitely have a huge role to play in this. I think the other important point is it's good to have technology, but it's important to have a global perspective. I think today you would see, technology adoption is at a different level of maturity in different countries, geographies. Some are highly technology advanced. Some are in the developing in a catch-up stage. Some maybe still have some grounds to catch up. So it's important to have an overall global perspective and at the same time be globally relevant. That's where I think the entire adoption or acquisition of skills would be important in being globally relevant. I think the other area is be technically competent. I think just understanding technology is not enough. If you're really looking at embarking on this journey, it's important to be technically competent. And at the same time, it's important to take the right trainings in your chosen area of interest. It's important to take the trainings from right institutions or right organizations, or at least have the right methods of training. And I think the last is all about, soft skills I've talked about. It's important to have right communication, good presentation skills. And I think it's important you should be able to leverage. It's a digital economy that we keep talking about. And it's important that we know how to leverage these digital capabilities. So I think there is a huge potential for chartered accountants to be able to play a role in this entire, technology world or technology world, which is changing every day, and the new technologies are coming in. And, so I think it's a great area, let's say an opportunity at the right time. And, I'm happy to support, mentor, anyone, who's looking to, move into this area. Happy to share my experience, and connect to me separately on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help. So I think with that, Murtuza, I'm open to taking any questions, and I'll pass it on to you.
Sure. So, thank you very much, Mahendra, for an excellent session. And to build on to what Mahendra says, of course, we have a basic CA qualification to start with, but we could, from our institute, we have diploma in information systems audit, and which can help us in going on this IT journey. And globally, we also have certified information systems auditor course. And if you want to get into maybe on the other side, you can even do CISSP and various other things. So a lot of dimensions, a lot of areas which can be done. And I would only want to say one thing, like with companies like Tata Consultancy saying that 70% of the workforce will work from home about now. And even like Tata Sky type of organization saying that, the CEO of Tata Sky saying that, don't expect me to come to office every day, 5 days a week. And only half of my team will be in office now going forward. So people work from home, and many of us here, yesterday also we had 950 people listening into this program. And many of us working with our organizations must be working from home, using our own home network, whether it is secured, not secured. So around there are a lot of network security issue comes up, and there are a lot of opportunities which arises where we can go and give consultancy support as well. So I also recognize presence of regional council member and past chairperson of WRC Preeti Savla. I welcome her, and I also recognize presence of Sanjay. But before I hand over to Preeti for a formal vote of thanks, I have a couple of questions, Mahendra. So Mahendra, in the current environment, when we talk about work from home, what opportunities, what can a chartered accountant do? How can he understand? How can he help? So that is my first question. And then I'll come to you for one or more thing, and we'll also look through. I'll also request all the participants to type in their questions so that we can read through and put it to the speaker.
Sure. Thank you, Murtuza. So I think in the current world, as Mr. Shekhar mentioned in the start, I think the information technology or the professionals or the IT professionals today possibly are, even though they're working from home, I think are being the most, are being utilized, if I can say so. And in that environment, I would say, be it around the entire or managing the risks in this current pandemic environment for organizations, be able to audit the various environments or be able to support in managing, addressing risks, or be it around, how, for example, companies are looking at adoption of new technologies and automation, or re-looking at changing their business scenarios or processes. How can, I think this is an area where definitely we can help our clients in advising on how they can have changes to their business processes or business models in adopting technology. And I think that's a huge area to play. I've talked about data analytics being critical in this scenario. So helping organizations draw meaningful insights, utilizing the data could be another area where it could be leveraged.
Mahendra, my second question is, a lot of large organizations go and implement ERPs like SAP and Oracle Financial. So what is the role of a chartered accountant in implementation of SAP and Oracle? And can an SAP implementation happen without a CA? Because of course it has got to do with accounting. So what is the role of a chartered accountant? What do they know? What do they bring in? Can only the coders code in? How does it work? If you can tell us a little more on that.
Sure. So if you look at from an ERP perspective, I think whether it's SAP, Oracle or Microsoft, most of these applications today are the backbones of running businesses for organization. large organizations, medium organizations. Now, the way today the business is run, whether it is sales, manufacturing, supply chain, procurement, finance, all the processes today are integrated, and they would have a touch point with finance at every possible area. Whether it starts from, if you have to do a sales, there needs to be an accounting for sales, there needs to be a pricing, if there has to be a costing of the product from a manufacturing standpoint. So in every potential area, there is a finance touch point for any businesses. And this is where, as a chartered accountant, I think with having a understanding of business, domain, taxation, reporting, financial closing, it's a huge area to be able to help organizations in defining the right ERPs rightly at the stage of implementations. Now, having said that, today we do see there are other professionals, who are also in this area, be able, still playing those functional consultants role in implementations. But I think that's where we also see, maybe a lot of such projects having gaps when we go and do our audits, in controls not being implemented rightly. Let's say businesses having implemented ERP still do things manually outside system, and appropriate processes are not talking end to end to each other. I think so. These are definitely areas where, with our experience, we can play a big role in helping or helping organizations implement ERP rightly.
Thank you, Mahendra. So, for the interest of the participants, so like say, whenever we talk about any ERP, any software, the first thing which comes to organization, where they got a hotel also, they do ticket booking also, they got car hire also. There will be different revenues. Okay, so different revenue accounts will be required for each business, but overall for the consolidation, whatever is there in the subsidiary will also appear in the parent company. Similarly, what is required to be configured? Do you want a purchase requisition through the system? Do you want a purchase order through the system? Do you want a GRN through the system? Do you want to keep a variation of 2 or 5%? So all of these, the chartered accountant sits and understands from the business, prepares a user requirement document, and then gives it to the IT team, and then the IT team comes and do the coding. Now, when you prepare a vendor master, you upload, and if you have to select a bank account, that Union Bank of India or X or Y, so before uploading the vendor master or custom master, you will have to upload the bank master. Now, if you want to do a exchange loss gain this thing you want to set up, then even before uploading the bank master, you will have to upload the exchange rates for last 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. I'm saying there are so many things, and all of these we only understand. The coders will not understand. And there are people like Mahendra Balasaria, who is a chartered accountant, but maybe he is decided to choose and go into only on SAP. And what he does is only SAP. But friends, in a normal practice, we maybe file our income tax returns for 500 rupees, or maybe we do an internal audit or statutory audit, and where maybe the rate per hour which we draw or our firms draw is 700 or 800 rupees or 1000 rupees an hour. But these are all niche services in IT, where like they draw something from 2000 rupees to 5000 rupees per hour rate which they take. मतलब एक assignment अगर 10 दिन है और 80 hours है, तो it can be a 16 lakh rupees assignment. And right now there are so many phishing thing which comes. So that gets covered in the IT security. So Mahendra, thank you for covering the whole range of IT opportunities for our young members. Now I request Preeti Saula to formally give her views about the various opportunities for all the members, and also present a formal vote of thanks for our first speaker. Preeti, over to you.
Thank you, Murtuza Bhai, Secretary WIRC. I can also see from Navi Mumbai, I think Sanjay Nikam is there, but it is difficult to recognize him because he's in new mode of his, mustache and all. Anyways, first let me appreciate all the efforts of Murtuza Kachwala last year, I recollect in the month of, in fact, February itself, we have started with that 2 days internal audit series, that conference, which is a lifetime memory in the it is first time in the history of WRC and lifetime memory. I don't know whether that type of event will any time happen in the WRC. So that my appreciation, no doubt every month we run the internal audit series, but that was a unforgettable event. No doubt with this lockdown also, his efforts are on and on so that we can do a lot for the members, a lot for the young members. And when I hear Mahendra ji, I can recollect, a lot of things, the coding. So whenever any package, any software is to be made, so it is a chartered accountant who can understand the business language, accounting language, and can always give the, give the advice to the coders, so that, and if it is a combination of coding knowledge as well as the combination of chartered accountancy, then it 100% works the extreme superb. We are the superb in that case if we have both knowledge, coding, because now it is a technology, and we have to get the training in that. We have to unlearn and relearn new things. And friends, you are the youngsters. When you are young people, you can do that really well, because you have a lot of small, little things to unlearn. Because we grow as a seniors, we have a lot of things to unlearn, and again new learning is required. But your mind is so fresh, you can do lot of things with this technology, and we take a little more time to learn the technology, whereas you people can really learn coding, and that is why the session has been kept specifically for you people, so you can take this as a career, and you can do wonders. As a ICAI, we are there to open the multidisciplinary forms also. We have already opened up. However, the other professionals are yet to come. And once this multidisciplinary forms concept is open, you can have the engineers also as a partners, company secretaries and lawyers, which are also required in this form, so that you can, go to the next level. So that will be coming soon, whenever the other, our sister institutes are opening up. From our side, ICAI side, it is already open. Our website is also revamped. If you go on ICAI website, it is totally revamped, and you can do lot of there are a lot of opportunity from ICAI level also. You can be the paper checker. Now it is totally digitalized form. CA foundation or inter level, IPCC level or final level. You can enroll for that. Now we have from Board of Studies, you can become a speaker, faculty. If you are academician, you can become the faculty for CA students. Friends, recently they have opened a Google form. You can fill it in the details. You can become the CA as a teacher, CA for teaching the CA students. You can become the researchers. There are a lot of research activities which ICAI and WRC is doing. Lot of things like they are giving lakhs of rupees as a who are the winners for these research papers. You can just visit the website and get these details as a researcher. You can also get empaneled as a FRRB reviewers. Like you are you are a peer reviewer. You can also be the FRRB reviewer, where you are getting very good remuneration also. You have to review the balance sheets, analyze the balance sheets of listed companies and give your feedback. So you can be the FRRB reviewer, you can be the peer reviewer, as well as now tax audit reviewer is also there. So you can empanel for that also. You can be the, there are a lot of things as a youngsters with this technology, I can say, and our DAB and doing lot of things at WRC also. We are doing lot of things now. This with ABCD, that is artificial intelligence, blockchain, cyber security, and data analytics, and I can add E into that. That is ethics. that is new code of ethics. The volume 2 has been launched a day before yesterday only. Friends, you must have learned this ethics in your final level examination, but no one is taking seriously, because I also remember my days of CA final exam. But friends, nowadays the things are becoming very difficult. You should have 2 hours CP on this code of ethics also. So friends, please go through this ethics volume 1, 2 and 3. You can attend the lectures which are organized by WRC. We are coming up with a panel discussion and mock disciplinary committee meeting. So how mock DC will be happening. So very soon we will be coming up. So you can upgrade your knowledge by attending on ethics, by attending those sessions also. So friends, I am not taking much of the time. It's already 5, but I can see that, as rightly said by Mahendra ji, you have to get training and you have to be specialized in that particular thing. So please learn and learn. Be specialized in that particular thing. It is not necessary you will get the work immediately. And sometimes I also, when I interact with the young people, they काम आएगा तो भी हम पढ़ेंगे, ऐसा नहीं है friends. You have to first showcase, you have to first learn, upgrade your knowledge and showcase your knowledge. Then only you will get the work. It is not like that कि first work will come and then you have to learn. You can also come up we are also building the faculty's pool and taking the young members, so you can connect with either any of us for becoming the faculty. If you are having a knowledge on specialized field, so we can organize the sessions, your session at either WRC level or at branches or study circle levels, and this is an online platform. By sitting at your home also you can deliver the session. So please come forward. You can become the coordinator also. You can do lot of things by associating with our region, our institute. So please grab these opportunities. We are there to support our fraternity. It is our endeavor to serve the best to the members of our region. Friends, I wish you all the best for reaching the greatest height in your career. And I really appreciate all the efforts of Murtuza Bhai and also Sanjay Bhai, who has joined, and also the Mahendra ji, Bala Surya, who has really excellently taken the session on coding, on cyber security. Mahendra ji, on behalf of WIRC, on all the participants, I really thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I request all the participants to carry this vote of thanks by sitting at home with loud applause, and please take it further. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Preeti ji. Thank you, Murtuza. Thank you, Sanjay ji.
Mahendra, once again, thank you. We are extremely grateful. And we also accept your opportunity which you offered, your offer. Any young member wants any mentorship or any guidance, and if they write to wrc@icai.in, we'll forward the mail to you and we'll look forward for your help and support to the members.
Sure. Definitely, sir. Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Preeti madam. We now have our second speaker for today, Dhruvo Ghosh. And before I hand over to Sanjay for introduction of Dhruvo, let me tell you, friends, there are only two things which are selling in COVID times. One is the IT security, the network security, the cyber security, and the second one is the automation and digitalization. And Dhruvo is the most sought after person. In many finance functions, people are saying कि बैंक रिकंसिलेशन ऑटोमेटिक कैसा करने का है, या परचेस इनवॉइस का ऑटोमेटिक प्रोसेसिंग कैसा हो सकता है. So like finance function automation, either by using a robotic process automation or doing a complete digitalization or automation. So that is his forte, and he will talk to us about that. If you are doing a statutory audit or internal audit, then how do you do a process understanding or process mining? How do you do data analytics? How do you move to a continuous control monitoring? Dhruvo will talk to us about that as well. So there are huge opportunity, and this is the only way to go ahead with all the form of automation, digitalization, etc. So Dhruvo, thank you very much for joining us. And let me also tell you that Dhruvo was the first person in India to predict the number of COVID active cases, and he went live on TV channel with Times Now, and on the channel he was the first one in India to predict the number, and his prediction came through. And maybe he will even tell us what predictive models he used to do that, and how does he work on the predictive models, etc. So maybe he will touch upon that as well. We'll request him to do that. And with that, let me to even share his thoughts, Sanjay, for the young audience. What are the opportunities, what they should do, and then introduce Dhruvo. Sanjay, over to you. Sanjay, you will have to unmute.
Good evening, and thank you, Murtuza Bhai, for giving me opportunity to be part of this intellectual group. I appreciate the words, kind words from your side, and our past WRC chairperson, Preeti ma'am. She also guided us very well. Friends, I am Sanjay Nikam. I appreciate and extend my gratitude to organizers for giving me opportunity to be part of this coordinating team for today's webinar on young members mentorship. Friends, I always feel that analytical skills of chartered accountants, if embedded with the IT expertise, it is going to be a lethal combination, and it will play a significant role in today's era for our progress of our profession. I remember the phrase used by a chairman of a leading corporate in India in their AGM, that data is a new oil. And it is 100% true now. Data is going to play an important role in everyone's life. And chartered accountants with their analytical values can contribute in good way. Data mining, robotic accounting, machine learning, artificial intelligence are latest buzzwords. And I appreciate WRC and ICAI for taking up this topic at priority and organizing such webinars for our members. I appreciate the Professional Development Committee for choosing this webinar and selecting and inviting such a learned and eminent speaker to deliberate their expertise on this topic. Friends, I'll move further, and I'll move on to the next session, next part of our today's session, that is on career opportunities in data and digital. For this topic, we have with us a young and dynamic, as Murtuza Bhai also already explained, that his unique vision, and definitely I'm confident that it is based on the IT expertise only, and he predicted the numbers of COVID-19 victims. So I'll move further, and I'll give a brief introduction of Dhruvo. He's fondly called as a Dhruvo. His full name is Dhruvo Bhrata Ghosh Dastidar, engineer by profession, master of technology, PGDBM, leads data and digital practice for Protiviti India. He's a data evangelist with a focus on developing and architecting end-to-end data science solutions. Dhruvo has worked with large and global telecoms, banking and utility clients with an experience in working in business intelligence, revenue management and master data management domain. He also worked as a core member of Protiviti to define next generation of internal audits and to see how technology can act as an enabler of audit. So now, by now, we all have understood that how data and chartered accountancy skill will be useful for our future. Without taking much of your time, I'll hand over the session to our learned speaker, Dhruvo, and I wish everyone happy learning. Take the charge of the session, Dhruvo.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Thank you, Murtuza, for inviting me. It's good to talk in such forums. Murtuza talked about the prediction that we did, right? And Preeti Madam talked about ABCD of technology in audit, right? So A stands for artificial intelligence. What we actually use for the purpose of prediction is machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence. And I was telling Murtuza the other day, this particular model I hoped would not be correct, because what we were predicting was high numbers at the beginning of that day, and we were scared that these numbers will come true. Unfortunately, we are close by around 96%, 92% as what we were predicting at that point of time. These are models, these are pandemic models which are available. It was used previously for Ebola, it was used for H1N1. So we use something very similar which was done before to kind of do it for India. Yes, there are a lot of simulations, artificial intelligence which needs to be built in. That's something which we did. But that's a topic, a 1 hour topic that we would perhaps need to cover as to what we did, how we did. But yes, those are forecasting models which we had to build. And there is a team of data scientists in our organizations who are working to come up with these kind of models. What I thought we will cover in today is on analytics, right? And Murtaza talked about RPA, process mining. So I have a deck where we talk about how audit is moving towards audit 4.0, right? And why we are calling 4.0, we will touch upon that a little bit in details. What is this audit transformation? How is audit transforming, and how can young professionals like you start contributing to that? The primary reason, if you ask me, I'm a technology guy by profession, right? When I look at a process, I cannot look at the nitty-gritties. If I have an auditor with me, if I have a chartered accountant with me, the way he can look at the nitty-gritties of a particular process is very different. And if that person understands technology, it's a lethal combination. So let me start sharing my screen and stop sharing my video. Let me know once. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see now.
All right. So we are calling it Audit 4.0, right? The reason we are calling it Audit 4.0 is because we are in Industry 4.0. Why are we calling Industry 4.0? Because we are in the fourth industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution was steam. The second one was electricity. The third one was computing. And if you look at the number of years it took for each industrial revolution to come, it's roughly around 100 years. But the last, or this present industrial revolution age that we are in, which is the cognitive revolution, where artificial intelligence, the AI, the A of ABCD, is gaining momentum. And we live in this particular era of cognitive. Now, what does that mean, right? It means that there is an unprecedented velocity, scope, and impact of this particular revolution on our day-to-day life. If you look at the GDP, it sees an exponential growth in this particular industrial revolution, which means things are becoming faster than before. The way people consume data is changing. The way people use technology for the betterment of their life, it's changing. And artificial intelligence is playing its role. We talked about data is the new oil, right? And why are we talking data as the new oil? But before we talk about why it's oil, let's first understand what are the different kinds of data that exist. If we look at the last industrial revolution, which is the computing industrial revolution, data existed. And data can be a master data. If you have your vendor master, which Murtaza was talking about, I'm sure Mahendra alluded to, master data is the vendor master, your employee master, your customer master, so on and so forth. It's very important for an organization. The reason it is important for an organization is it ties everything back together. If you have a wrong vendor and then a transaction happens, then you don't know where the money has gone to. Who was the vendor who received the money? If the master is incorrect, it can lead to a lot of revenue leakages, frauds, which can happen. So master data is very important. There is the next kind of data which calls reference data. Reference data helps you in storing data in a much leaner format. Instead of always referencing to a city, Mumbai, state, Maharashtra, if there is a code, MH010, which means it's a reference for the data which is actually being stored. That is reference data. You reference a particular information by a code. Transactions, I'm sure we all understand. If a purchase order is raised, if an invoice is processed, each one of them is a transaction. And transactions should have reference data embedded in. It should have relevant information about the master so that you can tie it back. And finally, what we have is called metadata. Metadata talks about data. Let's say you have a customer master. And if you do a segmentation of the customer master, then the segmentation is metadata. It is the data about data. Now, this is what all data is about. Now, when Industry 4.0 came about, we saw there is a huge growth in computing power, followed by increase in distributed computing, information sharing, and integrated networks, which means if you have huge volume of data surrounding you, you can use the computing power which is distributed in nature. You can get information through integrated networks where people are sharing a lot of information. And finally, you have machine learning and artificial intelligence to churn the data which you have. So all this data existed in Industry 3.0. What Industry 4.0 did was bring in the respective hardware and software to make that data usable. You will be surprised to know that there is 1/3 of the data in the world which is usable. The rest 2/3 is noise. And of that 1/3 data, we use only 0.5%. So there is a plethora of data which we are not using. And Industry 4.0 brings the hope that we will start using the data, start driving insights from this information, and make it usable. Now, when we talk to our clients, right, they also say something very similar. They talk about they kind of falling under a huge amount of data, not able to understand who their customers are. They're not able to understand what to do from a system standpoint to keep up. Should they invest more and more into servers, more or more into different kinds of tools? They don't know. They're not able to keep up, or they're becoming too costly to be competitive. And then there are so many apps which is making life difficult. They are not able to understand what to do with these kind of things. Basically, there's too much disruptive innovation, which is creating a bottleneck for a particular business or a particular industry. Now, what we are going to talk about in the next half an hour or 40 minutes is how we can leverage technology and analytics for this purpose. Before we get into, let's look at what are the risks which are there in today's corporate world. Now, this is based on a survey which we at Protivity did some time back. It talks about two major risks. The first is the speed of disruptive innovation, and that's something which we are all aware of. The way we use iPhones, Android phones, the way we use the apps, the way we use artificial intelligence. So today, a phone opens with your face recognition, right? That's artificial intelligence at the end of the day. So this is a speed of disruptive innovation and new technologies which was not there before. So that's a risk. But more than that, the resistance to change operations is another risk, which means that technology is changing, but we are not willing to change with that technology. Now, these two are the major risks in today's world, which can hamper business as usual. Now, what to do with it? People need to understand where do they stand in this digital transformation journey, in this journey of rapid changes, where do they stand? So there is something as a digital and data maturity assessment. There is a small video which talks about what is it, and we will run through that video. So this is a proprietary tool which we generally use. I don't think you can hear the video, right? Can you, Murtaza?
No, sir, we are not able to hear the video. We can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, but we can see, means like all the comments we can see and read, but we can't hear the music in the video.
This is a new app for me, right? So things become difficult
No
every
worries, but
time.
I think we can still understand what is happening.
These changes are true digitalization happens at the transforming the organization from to maximize efficiency.
The voice has now started, but it's very slow. It has started.
We have identified digital defined through a set of theories.
So what it basically does is it tries to understand whether you are a digital skeptic, which means you do not want to start this journey, or you are a beginner who has started embracing the changes which is surrounding you. Or you can be a follower, which means you have a strategy, you are agile, you have started this journey and you're moving towards it. Now, all this is based on a kind of survey which you can do. It's part of your journey or your entry towards a digital transformation journey. Now, as you move up the scale, right, you move from being a skeptic to a beginner to a follower to an advanced stage, or finally you become the digital leader, which means people like DHL, they started using analytics to decide how they are going to transform the way they do business. So there are digital leaders, there are digital innovators, and all is based on the 6x6 matrix which you see here. It has a lot to do with your vision. It has a lot to do with the way you are structured within an organization. But at the end of the day, what comes out is a digital score, which talks about where you stand. Should you invest more in this journey of digital transformation? And if so, what you should need to do? Now, we said that we will talk about internal audit, and we will talk about what next generation of internal audit would look like. Now, this is what at Protiviti we generally talk about is going to be the next generation of internal audit. And there are three parts to it. The first is the governance. The governance talks about if you need to transform, like we talked about in our digital maturity assessment framework, you need to have a vision. You need to have an organizational structure which allows you to move towards a next generation of internal audit. Now, why a different kind of an organization structure? This is not the traditional way of doing audit. You need people, you need skill sets which looks at it differently, sits separately outside the traditional way of doing audit and brings in the new scope. When you talk about a different kinds of organizational structure, you're definitely talking about a different set of resource and talent management. This is where I believe Preeti and Murtaza Bhai was talking about earlier is how you upskill yourself, right? How do you bring in that knowledge of analytics along with the process knowledge to make that impact? Because today's world definitely is changing. And from a governance point of view, people are start looking for talent which brings in this skill set on the table. From a methodology point of view, if we look into it, we're talking about the approach also taking a different kind of route, right? People are not talking about a static risk assessment anymore. They're talking about dynamic risk assessments. They're talking about agile audit approach. Rather than doing audit of a particular process one time a year, they're talking about looking at KPIs for any process. And the agile audit approach could be one KPI a day. So the entire team can be focused on working on one KPI to understand what is that output. The approach that they take towards audit is also changing. The way they report changes primarily because people are trying to move to a continuous monitoring platform. And what does continuous monitoring mean as a methodology? It means that instead of doing it one time a year or once in every 2 years, it would be really nice if I can have analytics against every control points. And these analytics will try to capture the exceptions or the outliers. These outliers, as and when it occurs, creates a red flag. So you can come and monitor it on a continuous basis. You will give the time to business to resolve the issues, but you know that what is the exposure that I have because of this particular control weakness and how soon this needs to be resolved. So there is always an eye on the process. It doesn't stop for a minute. Every transaction it can monitor as and when it occurs. And this governance and methodology is supported by enabling technologies, which we are going to also talk about in the next 20 minutes, is machine learning, right? We talked about prediction. The same can be used for risk qualifications, where you can gather social intelligence and other things to understand risks internal to your risks coming from external sources, but risks nonetheless for your organization. You can use process mining to understand your process better. And when we talk about how technology kind of impacts these, we will talk about process mining a little bit more in details. RPA is kind of tying everything back together. RPA or process automation helps in automating smaller steps. It helps in automating full processes, where if you need to extract information rather than individual sitting, you can write a bot which can extract information. Murtaza talked about bank reconciliation. You can have a bot do the bank reconciliation, perform the same exact steps that you're performing. In short, any non-value added work which is there in today's world is going to be replaced. We like it or not, anything which is non-value adding work, which is rule-based step-by-step approach, is going to be replaced. Extracting data, performing checks is not something for which we need humans. We need humans more for their intelligence. So all this low-end work of pulling information, running scripts, giving output, everything can be automated, and that's what is happening around us in today's world. We need people to take informed decisions. And finally, we have advanced analytics, which can be rule-based, which can be a multitude of other things. So there is this enabling technologies which will help. Now, if we move on to the next slide, before we step in what these different kinds of technologies are, let's look at what audit used to be, right? If we understand what Audit 4.0 would mean tomorrow, or what Audit 4.0 actually means, it means an effective and efficient manner of giving a real-time assurance. So if I have to look at audit, then 1.0 means doing an audit using pencils and calculators, doing manual audits. It moves on. In a 2.0 framework, it would be IT audits using a bit of Excel and CAT. So if we are still using Excel for the purpose of doing audits, it means we are still in the 2.0 era. 3.0 means we have started using data analytics applications like ACL, like IDEA. But 4.0 means much more. 4.0 means we have moved to become in a continuous monitoring setup. We are using audit automation, which means we have started using RPA, process mining, and different other tools in the form of audit. And then you have CPS, IIoT, RFID, everything linked to audit. If something occurs, these are more real time. The CPS, IIoT, and everything is real time. If anything occurs, it immediately notifies you. So if I have to define Audit 4.0, it is typically an overlay of Industry 4.0's business management process, which uses the similar infrastructure but is used for our assurance purposes. That is how we would define Audit 4.0. Now let's look at the different activities that we would perform as a part of our assurance activities, right? We will do a risk assessment to start with. We will do planning and sample selection. We would walk through the processes. Then we would do some controls testing. And finally, we would report and follow up on whatever we have talked about. Now let's look at where technology can become an enabler in this entire process. First and foremost, the risks which you see, rather than giving it as plain simple risk, if people can create heat maps, a red, amber, green, the basic format, that's also technology, right? The risk assessment being presented in a much more dynamic manner by departments, by a comparison with last year with this year, but as risk heat maps, which people can take, because a picture is it's more valuable than 1,000 words, right? So if you see something visually, which is a heat map, which says that these are the risks, these are the high risks, or these are the processes which are at high risk, it kinds of pulls out information faster. You can extend that and talk about risk qualification. Risk qualification is using a machine learning algorithm to qualify the risks. How can you qualify risks? You will have associated parameters, you will have associated information about risks which has occurred in history. You use those, you train your model so that any interaction, any transaction which actually happens can immediately classify that in one form or the other form of risk. And that is where risk qualification becomes more effective. And I touched upon this in a couple of minutes back, is on social intelligence. Now, till date, most of the risk assessments that we did was based on data available internally. But an organization or a firm is not just a set of people working in an office. They're interacting with this world around us. So there is a lot of social interactions which happens. People go and talk about their offices, about their business outside. And that can also put a company at risk. Social intelligence is gathering information from the social media and using those for the purpose of risk assessment. I'll give you an example. We did a post-factor analysis of what happened at Wells Fargo in US some time back. And when we started pulling out social information from the Twitter data, what we realized is people were talking about stress at work, meeting targets, meeting deadlines, so on and so forth, which means the employees were venting out the pressure that they had at work to meet their targets. Now, if that information can be used for the purpose of doing a culture at risk or a risk culture audit, it becomes very important. And that helps you pull in this information, and technology actually helps you pull in this information from websites. Any information which is publicly available, you can write what is known as web crawlers to crawl the web and get this information and use it for the purpose of risk assessment. Now, as we move on from a risk assessment to the planning and sample selection, once we have done a risk assessment, we want to look at a sample size. Now, in an ideal world, we should not look at a sample size, but let's say we do. How do you select a sample? Do you select a sample randomly? The answer is you should not. You should use, again, technology for the purpose of sampling. Statistical sampling is one such method of doing that. What it does is it talks about choosing a sample which reflects your population. A sample which actually is a mirror image of the population. And statistical sampling actually helps you do that. It helps you select samples. It helps you create what we call in statistical terms as hypothesis testing. And it tries to prove either it's correct or incorrect. And that's how you come up with a sample which reflects your population. And if you have to test this sample, it's as if you're testing that population itself. But as I said, why do a sampling, right? There are physical copies of things which are available in paper for which we cannot use analytics and for which we have to do sampling. But if you look at today's world, there is a lot of robotic process automation associated with what we call as ICR or OCR. Intelligent character recognition or optical character recognition. It actually converts a physical or a manual document to its digital form and reads the digital copy and puts relevant information in your ERP system. So gone are the days when if things are in a manual copy, you always have to go back and check it manually. You can use OCR-based scanning to extract that information from that manual document and push it into a system where you can then analyze. And if OCR-based screening is making life simpler, we move away from a sampling to 100% population testing. So in a planning and sample selection, always plan to do 100%. And there are technologies which are available which will make you or help you do this 100% population testing. Now we have enough data to do 100% population testing. What's next? We have to understand how the process is. And process mining as a concept and as different tools help you in mining the process. When we started doing continuous monitoring and audit analytics, we would go to a process owner. We would ask, okay, please explain to me how does the P2P process work? And he would give us an explanation. We would come, we would create control points, we would create analytical procedures against that control points and test them. When we will go back to these business owners, they would say, oh no, I forgot to tell you that there is an alternate scenario in this entire process and these things happen. A simple example is, let's say P2P process. In a P2P process, I raise a purchase requisition and then a purchase order is released. And once a GRN is received, once the purchase order is released, then an invoice comes and finally the payment happens. But in some cases, you don't need to have a purchase requisition. You can directly go for a purchase order, let's say if the volume or the value is less than a certain amount. So it's an accepted variation to this particular process, but if the process owner doesn't mention us, anything which goes other than a PRPO route, we would call them as exceptions. So when a process owner, when we start doing audit analytics, we kind of generate the results and the process owners always used to tell us, No, there is an exceptional variation or there is an accepted variance to this process. Now, process mining mines the process by itself. So you don't need to talk to a process owner anymore. It can recreate the process based on what the digital footprints are. So if we are talking about an SAP world, this tool knows which data is stored where to recreate that process. So it will pull those information out and will recreate a P2P process. And we would take you through one such video where this P2P process is shown a little bit more in details. Now, once you look at a process, you know all different variations of the process. And you know what are accepted variations and what are not accepted variations. So your analytics on audit becomes much more useful. The other problem which we always face is I give you data from an SAP system and I give you data from an Oracle system. I don't know how these data are related. So there are data discovery tools which actually goes and helps you find the common linkage between the two different sets of tools or two different sets of data. And that's where data discovery tools comes very handy. Then you want to analyze how your customer care agents are talking to people. In today's world, we would look at how many calls to they made, what was the feedback which was received from them. But using machine learning technologies, you can actually analyze the voice. You can analyze every word that person says. Now, as a customer care agent, you're not supposed to seek private information or anything related to their bank details. And if these people are asking, voice analysis actually helps you in understanding that. It goes beyond just doing a voice analysis, but it also can make out whether your tone was rude with that particular customer. Did you say something inappropriate? So voice analysis can take it to that level. Similarly, instead of people going and doing physical inspection, there are drones which are available today which can actually perform virtual inspection where they would go to a particular inventory, they will go to a particular godown, they will look at all which is there and virtually inspect using image analytical techniques. So process walkthrough can, to a large extent, be transformed digitally. Now, once this is done, you can start using analytics. Now, analytics can be used in different ways and forms. One is integrated analytics. Integrated analytics means that rather than doing a continuous monitoring setup, which will take a long time, you can use certain analytical procedures which you can run on a continuous basis. You can, let's say you're doing a P2P audit, you can have somebody as part of your team which analyzes large volume of data and gives you exceptional scenarios. And you can keep those scripts handy, so next time when you run it, you run those scripts again. But as continuous monitoring, it is a setup which is created. It is like not as complex as an ERP system, but it is still a system which is created, which is monitoring every transaction which is happening in a particular process and alarming you or throwing red flags. Or let's say for the purpose that you don't want to either invest in tools or softwares, then you can also choose analytics as a service. So you provide the data, the analytics is done, and it provides you the result. And you run with the result. So you can put it in a platform where analytics is served as a service. The second or the last piece in reporting and follow-up is how do you present these exceptions? You have done all these steps just for the purpose of doing this controls testing to generate exceptions that this is not an accepted scenario. This is an exception which you need to look and run with. So these exceptions should not be presented as rows and columns. You can provide as dashboards so that the users who are looking at this can slice and dice the information to make or do the preliminary root cause analysis without anyone's help. Now, once they do this, once you provide these dashboards, in a lot of organizations, it goes through a route, right? So if an auditor raises an observation, it passes it on to its auditee. Now, once the auditee looks at it, he either accepts or rejects, and if he rejects, it passes it on to someone else. And there is a workflow around this entire activity. Now, there are tools or custom-built software which helps you automate this workflow as how these exceptions flows between an auditor and an auditee. And finally, once you have gone through that process of concurrence, validation, and everything, you have what you can also have bots. You can have the reports being written through what we call as NLP or natural language processing. So instead of even writing the report, there can be algorithms which can write the report for you. So these are the different ways technology can actually transform the way you are performing audit in all the steps. So this is one of our very favorite use cases in this audit transformation journey, right? If you have heard or looked at audit transformation, it all starts with identification of risks. Now, once you have identified risks, you keep them in a GRC software, and in some cases you even keep them in an Excel. But let's say a company which is tech savvy keeps it in a GRC software on a platform. Now, based on the different processes which are there, different risks which are there, you perform these audits. Now, as the first step, you need to extract information which is there in your ERP system. And this can be triggered based on the highest risk or the lowest risk. It depends how you classify and which audits you would need to learn or run. So it triggers data to be extracted, and that's where an RPA tool can come in. It can help you, or it can trigger this data extraction process from your ERP system. Once the data is extracted, you can run analytics, but you should not. You should first check the quality of the data. If the data quality is bad, if it doesn't make sense, you can run a lot of analytics, but all will generate garbage output. So it's garbage in, garbage out. And these data quality and data profiling tests acts as a decision get for you to run any kinds of analytics. So let's say you go through this decision get and people see a value, or people say that the quality of the data is good, then you can run it through a process mining tool. The process mining tool tells you how the process looks like. And then you can run your data analytics. So let's say if you want to run a duplicate payments, if you want to run a payment made on weekdays, you want to do a data out of sequence test, everything can be done using this data analytics test. The output in all cases is a dynamic dashboard, a dashboard which can slice and dice the information as per the requirement of the users. Now, there is one more step which is very important. Once you have generated the output, people like to validate this output with their source information. So they look at the exception, they go back to the ERP system, and they will check whether actually this kind of transaction has already happened. Now, you can also have a bot to do this activity. It can pull information from your dynamic dashboard, it can go back, and it can look in the ERP system and say, okay, good, it is a right exception, or it is not a right exception. If it is right, then it goes back to the GRC software and updates the risk, makes it higher. If it is not, it can come back and inform the users there is something wrong. It looks like a false positive. Please check your algorithms which you have derived. So this entire activity helps in the audit transformation process. And there are a few clients of ours who have actually gone ahead and done this kind of end-to-end automation. Now, what are the different challenges and lessons we have learned in this entire journey? First, you cannot do anything if you do not involve IT operations and senior leadership. You need to have an integrated approach to solving this, because end of the day, technology requires IT involvement. It is better to involve them. You need to have a buy-in from management. You need to ensure that the quality of the data is right. And you need not start with a big bang. You can even start small. Now, we touched upon the enabling technologies, right? And we will talk about a little, or rather, I'll take you through a few videos which talks about process mining and robotic process automation a little bit more in details. And you will see how easy it becomes for us to look at processes and to automate things with the help of technology. So this just talks about how messy a process in any organization is. This is kind of playing it down and saying, you think this is bad, you should see inside my head. And if you trust us, we have seen processes which are worse. So let us take you through a process mining basic. Just give me 1 minute.
Understand the most frequent process flows and learn where your process performance suffers. Get a completely new perspective and stay one step ahead of the competition. With Celonis.
So you will understand this particular video a little bit more in details. So I'll talk about this.
Purchase to pay, often abbreviated P2P, refers to the business processes that cover activities of requesting, purchasing, receiving, paying, and accounting for goods and services. Log in and discover how you can use Celonis to improve your purchase to pay process. The P2P process shown here belongs to an exemplary large medium-sized company. Let's call them EXP Productive. The volume of sales per year is around $1 billion, and the company has about 2,000 employees. Our smart Celonis algorithms uncover the real process in the raw system data. There is no need for lengthy interviews or reality assessment projects. Just push a button. Now let's move on and see what Celonis really is about. We now see the Process Explorer, one of the core functionalities. The Process Explorer shows different activities which are part of the purchase-to-pay process. Currently, you can see the most common process variant with all its activities. This leads to the total amount of cases shown. While we have 279,020 P2P cases all in all, only 39% are currently shown. We can dynamically change to the next most common variant by clicking here, and see how the percentage increases to 52% or 66% in case of the third variant. To keep track of all different paths, Celonis also provides the opportunity to highlight each process flow by clicking the play button. Let's take a look at the graph. We can see 37,000 cases in which the price needed to be corrected after the purchase order has been sent. If we assume that every price change takes about 20 minutes to clarify and execute, we see that nearly 2 years of a single person's work is wasted in a single step. But let's dig deeper into eXp Productive's data. Move on to the fourth variant and visualize its process. In 18,938 cases, an invoice has been scanned even before the purchase order has been created, which is violating corporate compliance policies. This can have many reasons. One could be employees in the production department directly contact a possible vendor and order materials without the involvement of the purchasing department. While it's difficult and time-consuming to detect problems like this in your ERP system, Celonis can show you the affected process and root causes in a matter of seconds. Process weaknesses hide in small details, but with the proper Explorer, you can see all of them at once. Just increase the percentage of the cases to 100%, and you will see how your actual processes look like. The full view reveals all inefficiencies and the complexity in your as-is processes, where you lose time, money, margin, and customer satisfaction. But it's not only the amount of related cases that is important when analyzing processes. Celonis offers a variety of options to identify weaknesses. Let's say eXp Productive would like to know the throughput of all included activities. No problem. If we click on the top left icon to switch to the throughput time, we see how much time each step takes. In the case of the price changes, as mentioned before, it does afford a lot of time to change all those prices in the SAP system. But how much time does it exactly take? As you can see now, this on average adds another 9 days to the process, simply caused by price changes. We just discovered several process inefficiencies and weaknesses. So what's next? Let's move on to a second worksheet. You can click on a specific type of case and, for example, see the different processes of all our exemplary companies' P2P cases in a single month. What's more, you can combine different filters, like a specific company and a specific time period. If we open up the same process from the beginning with the scan of the invoice and order the table on the right by vendors, we can see detailed information about which companies are more or less contacted without communicating with the purchasing department. As you can see, one company, Audit Corporation, is part of this process variant in 9,000 cases, with a value of almost $54 million. By adding the vendor as a filter, we can not only see its Process Explorer, but also its performance during the year. A very noticeable peak is in September and October. The eXp Productive Management could now start from there and check how the problem is caused. If necessary, we could at any time of the analysis change the view to the cases table and check all information in the source data set. Would you like to dig even deeper into P2P or analyze a whole different process? Celonis offers a large and unmatched selection of ready-to-use analysis to make your process.
So in short, what it does is it kind of helps in for us to understand a process much better. Even if you want to do an RPA, you need to understand a process. An RPA is short form of robotic process automation. If you want to do continuous monitoring, you need to understand a process. So process mining, let's say even if you want to do a process audit, you need to understand a process. So understanding a process becomes very important to us, and what we generally do is we use these kind of tools to make our lives much easier. We have similar kind of tools available in the market which helps you do this kind of thing. If you want to even try out, you can go to Celonis' website. There is a free version of this tool which works on Excel. You can also use that. But when we do globally today, we generally use a process mining tool before for any audit that we actually perform. Now, this is another case where you can actually use process automation or RPA for the purpose of doing an IT controls testing. Now, what it is trying to do is, I think Mahendra talked about SAP. So it is trying to kind of develop and deploy a series of bots which will help in the support of IT general controls. What did we do? We want to assess a particular control. we want to categorize these controls, we need to conduct those walkthroughs, and finally we would develop an RPA solution. And this 3-4 minutes video will actually talk about each step in this particular project or in this particular activity, right? Now, what is this particular IT control that we are talking about? We are talking about the SAP change management, which is the standard change testing and approval process. It will go through and see who were the users who provided sign off during the user acceptance test plans and what was those results. So it will identify a population which is automated. It would extract the artifacts. It will populate the testing attributes. And finally, it will give it to a person to review the testing results. This is how an RPA tool looks like. And what we will do is we will take you through each step. So right now it is trying to identify the population. It is looking at what are all the different artifacts that it would need to bring in. It's the SAP change management tool which was there. So it is gone into that particular site. It is putting the relevant information and it's bringing all this information out. Now this is all the bot is doing. There is no human involvement. It is searching by the IDs. It is pulling out all this information. It is storing. It's extracting this information and it's storing in a particular format. And it will extract all information. After this, you will say it will go to an email as well and try extracting this information and put all this information in this particular folder that you're looking at. So in this case, it's now looking at the UAT sign-offs and also pulling these UAT sign-off in this particular page. So it's extracting all this information, and once it has extracted this information, it's populating what we call as the attribute table, which the user will finally come and verify. So it has gone and looked at all possible test plans that was conducted, what were the attachments, where they are stored, who performed, what was the corrections which was requested, whether the corrections was done, so on and so forth. And the person who was involved in is now looking at these results and kind of verifying or reviewing these testing results. So something which was initially taking around 26 hours, 6 hours of people going and gathering the artifacts and 10 hours of doing the controls testing is now reduced to 1 hour of work. The bot or this robotic process automation spends just 4 minutes to do this, and that remaining 1 hour is required by a human or a person to go and actually run through these tests. Now, how does it help? It definitely helps in the quality of the tests that we are talking about, because people can miss, but a bot goes through a defined path, so it will definitely not miss any particular step. The testing cycle goes down, right? It doesn't necessarily have to wait. So you saw it come down to 1 hour from 26 hours, right? So the testing time, the testing cycle, both is optimized, and you can have much more coverages. Initially, instead of doing a sample, you can do a population. If not population, you can do at least 10 times what you were actually doing earlier. So when it comes to actual controls testing, RPA as a tool performs a lot of things. Now, the next few slides are a bit more technical in terms of what we can do when it comes to even doing technology audits, right? There are different kinds of technologies which is coming up. And what is becoming more and more important
How much more time you'll need?
1 minute.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
So I'm saying the way you are doing audits is also changing, and the kind of audits which you need to do is also changing. You need to understand how good or bad your data is. So you have to do a data governance audit. If you are bringing artificial intelligence, RPA, process mining, these are new technologies which is being brought in an organization. You also need to audit those technologies as well. And then the last but not the least, you are going to the social world, you are talking about social medias, digital marketing. things which never was needed to be, or things which was not audited before, are now becoming areas where audit needs to be performed. So that's mostly it. These are different frameworks which we use in audit. These are different tools which are there for each of the steps that we talked about. I think that's all the time we had to wrap up the session. That's it, Murtaza. I don't have anything else. If there is any questions, I'd like to take that. If not, it was an honor to be part of this this talking session.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Dhruvo. And thank you for covering and touching upon so many different things which can be done, from data analytics to continuous control monitoring to robotic process automation to SOX automation and so many other things. Okay. And thank you very much. I have got a lot of guests and dignitaries with me. I'll invite everyone one-to-one after the vote of thanks. But before that, Dhruvo, there is only one question. And so like the participants are wanting to know that like, okay, we are chartered accountants, we understand the finance process, but we don't understand RPA, we don't understand data analytics. So what do we learn? How do we learn? Is there a university, is there a course on RPA? What are the various products? And on data analytics, what are the various tools, and what course we can do and where can we learn?
Right. So there are different tools, right, Murtaza? For example, you will have tools like UiPath and Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism for RPA. Unlike any other tool like Excel, you can learn these things. These are not very difficult. These are low-code platforms, which means that you don't have to be a technology guy to understand these products. If you spend a little bit of time, you will be able to learn these. I believe in ICAI, you are also trying to do certain courses when it comes to automation, right? And partner with that. So that is something which they can also look at. But yes, these are not that difficult tools to learn. What you have, which technology guys don't have, is an understanding of the process, right? People understand finance process, so you can understand much sooner and better what needs to be fixed, what can be automated. A technology guy would always look from a technology lens, but these at the end of the day, as the name suggests, is process automation. So people who understand process has an advantage. It's just that the technology aspect which needs to be picked up. When it comes to analytical tools, I believe, again, there are a plethora of tools which are there in the market, ACL, IDEA. There are free available courses in Udemy and other places. There are paid courses as well. Again, they are not difficult to learn, and I also believe ICAI is doing its best to kind of partner with different tools and technologies, right? So I'll be happy if there are any specific tools, any specific questions. I'll be happy to work with them to see how we can assist them. But yes,
Thank you,
there are a lot
for
of
your
services available.
Yeah, thank you for your offer. And what we'll do is the specific questions from participants which comes to wrc@ici.in or even to the PD committee, we will refer those to you and maybe we'll seek your help in if you can answer them. It will help the young members and the participants to try and take their career in that direction. Before I formally request Sanjay Nikam to give a formal vote of thanks, just wanted to touch upon two things for the benefit of all the participants. So like say now bank audit, and there are a Union Bank of India may have 4,000 branches and 4,000 CA firms are doing audit. So there is something called as data room, and in the data room the Union Bank can buy the space on the cloud. They can create various folders that okay, Kalyan East or Dadar West or Kulaba branch. And in those branch folders, they can inform the branch managers of the team to put the data on a regular frequency and then give an access to the auditor. And the auditor sitting at home can get access into it, look at what are the new advances given, look at the KYC document, like you said, if they're scanned and put there, do analysis, and if there is a query, they can get on a video call and seek the clarifications and write a mail so that additional information can be put on the folder and the auditor can do the work and give the report there. And we are planning to do a program on that, and that program is planned on 17th afternoon, where like we are doing a complete 3 hours on work from home and the second hour is on this data room solution or software. there is one more thing, and I'm sure there is a lot more which Joshi sir will talk about, but the Professional Development Committee as your fund to ensure that a lot of tools and solutions are available. But one more thing is on the IDEA, like Dhruvo you touched upon. So on the IDEA software, ICAI has entered into an MOU with IDEA Caseware Canada, and we at WIRC are conducting a training on 18th morning, 3 hours training, and the fees is only 500 rupees. You will get 3 structured hours, but along with that training you also get a demo version of IDEA for 30 days. And the members can use it 30 days, they can understand everything, and if they are okay and if they want to buy, then ICI has agreed on a very, very subsidized rate with IDEA Caseware. So that is 2 inputs which I wanted to give. Now over to you, Sanjay, for a formal vote of thanks, and Dhruvo, really grateful and thank you very much for your time. Sanjay, over to you for a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Murtuza Katwala sir, Secretary WIRC. At the outset, I recognize the presence of our Central Council member, Srinivas Joshi sir, on the board. And our senior member Ram Mohan Bhave sir also is on the board. Welcome sir. Now I'll move on to my formality of giving a formal vote of thanks. Dhruvo, at the outset it was a pleasure and indeed a feast of knowledge you offered to all the young members. You touched upon very well with respect to the all aspects of the internal audit in IT environment. You explained types of data, enabling technology, process mining, and how technology transforms audit processes in audit latest IT environment. You mentioned one aspect here regarding risk issues. We all know that the information technology is all about the rapid changes, and you explain how rapid changes we have to cope up with that. And the risk factor here lies with resistance from the society. We all know who resists the changes are perishes. Now the time has come for our fraternity also to cope up the technology changes. You rightly mentioned that non-value adding work is going to be replaced. That is alert message for all the members, and that message is very loud and clear that the traditional practice is not going to last forever. We have to adopt the changes, and technical changes we have to learn about it, and we have to move further. I request all the members and the young chartered accountant joining this webinar to join with me in appreciating the contribution made by the Dhruvo to today's webinar. I request all of you to appreciate his effort with big round of applause. Wherever you are, kindly join me with thanking our today's speaker. With this, I hand over the charge of the session to Secretary of WRC, Murtuza Katwala sir.
Thank you, Dhruvo, and thank you, Sanjay. Let me now again welcome Central Council member and Chairman of the Professional Development Committee, Srinivas Joshi sir. Sir, we are extremely grateful. In the last 2 days, yesterday we touched upon the capital market, then the fraud investigation, then we did the whole of risk and control and internal audit. Today we did the cyber security, and then we did the data analytics, etc. And the last session, the Ind-AS, IFRS, and Srinivas Joshi sir is going to be the moderator. I also recognize presence of the 3 panelists, starting with Mr. C.A. Ram Mohan Bhave, C.A. Parag Kulkarni, and C.A. Harshad Tekwani. They will be on the panel. And I also recognize presence of my colleague C.A. Ashish Bakliwal, and I request Ashish to introduce all 4 of them, starting with Srinivas Joshi sir. Ashish, over to you for the introduction, and also some remarks from you, Ashish. Thank you. Ashish, you are on mute. Ashish, unmute.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for organizing such a wonderful event and the massive gathering we are having in this webinar. It's a talk of the town today. 1,000 people are attending this webinar and getting benefits from the experience of these mentors. And truly a young member mentorship program. And I really appreciate your efforts, Murtuza bhai. You have given me the responsibility, and it's my privilege to introduce the stalwarts like Srinivas ji, Ram Mohan Bhave ji, and Parag bhai and others. I take this opportunity and I start with the profile CA Srinivas Joshi sir. He is partner of CVK and Associate. He is a practice from over 38 years. He is a we know he's a Central Council member and he is a PD committee chairman. He was chairman of WRC in 2011 and 12 and in the 2005-6. He is regional council member from 2004 to 2013. He was convener of Mulund CPE Study Circle. He did a tremendous job at social and ICAI level. He was member and vice chairman of several important committees, ICAI, such as Audit Committee, Examination Committee, Executive Committee, Management Committee, and so on and so forth. He was convener of the group of revision of guidance note on bank audit 2013 to 2020, published by Accounting and Auditing Standard Board of ICAI, and convener of the group for online queries on bank branch audit from 2013 to 2019. He preparation of background material for bank audit seminar series by WRC for past 12 years. He is enriched ours with his vast experience in bank audits. Apart from this, he is independent director on the board and chairman of audit committee of SBI Mutual Fund Trustee Company, XBRL India, and Accounting Research Foundation of ICAI. He also is very active. He is president of Rotary Club of Mumbai, Mulund East, for the year 2012 and 13. With this brief introduction, I request all of you to please welcome with now another stalwart of a profession. Introduce another stalwart. He is father of like IFRS in Mumbai. Ram Mohan Bhave sir, I'm your student in valuations. I studied from you. He is last 10 years faculty and consultant in IFRS, Ind AS valuation, merchant acquisition, business strategy, and prior to that 30 years in corporates. 2009 Limca Book of World Record holder in subject IFRS. He is a record holder for webinar in maximum cities, GRRF, subject valuation. Asia Pacific record holder for webinar in maximum cities, GRRF, subject to valuation. He is qualified CA, CMA, CS, LLB, IFR, ACCA, London, certified IFRS, ICAI, Sigma 6 Green Belt. He delivered lecture on IFRS through web at 37,000 participants. 2,000 lectures delivered till date in the last 10 years in IFRS, Ind AS and valuation. Prior to this, he is a strategic advisor in some listed company. He is independent director on LIC Mutual Fund Trustee Company Limited. In past, director at Foundation Software MNC and Mittal Group Europe. Prior to this, coming to this year, 30 years he worked in corporate, worked as CFO, Chief Finance Director. Company experience include Reliance, Infocom, Mittal Group Europe, Foundation Software USA, Singapore, Australia, Crompton Greaves, Blue Star, Navin Florin, Gammon, India. He also visited and worked in Japan, Croatia, Oman, Dubai, Netherlands, Thailand. With this first and vast experience, we are having him here. So please, I will request everyone to welcome him. Now, our next panelist, we are having is Parag. Parag is young and dynamic. Sorry. He is first and only Indian to be CA from 4 countries. He is CA from India, CPA from USA, and CA from England and Wales. He received a high honor from New York Stern Business School for advanced valuation from August Hand of Valuation Guru, Professor Aswath Damodaran. He received honorable degree BFP from Chartered Accountant Institute of England and Wales. He is IBBI registered valuer. He is member of Board of Studies of prestigious college SP College Pune. He author of book on IFRS, for which forward has been extended by previous Central Minister. He is Suresh Prabhuji. He is founder of India Labs presently working in valuation, corporate finance, and IFRS. I welcome him. Now our final last panelist, Harshad Tekwani ji. He is a qualified chartered accountant with more than 7 years of experience in audit, companies audit, forensic audit, auditing standards, control testing, IFCR, SOX regulations, IFRS and accounting standards. His experience is Johnson Controls DGM governance, risk compliance at Johnson's currently is working. He was assistant manager, statutory audit and finance reporting at KPMG. IFRS reporting and SOX regulation experienced associates at EY Dubai. He was senior associate US GAAP reporting and SOX at PwC. He did as articleship from TKT. He has contributed at various forums. Green tick by Tech Sutra. Comments on received guidance note on accounting of political parties exposure draft. Law Street India, he works as a evaluating CPE proposals regarding shares and DVRs. Cayman Financial Review, he comments and suggested on tax morality to OECD. We have like stalwart speaker like all of them. With this, I request panel is open. Now I request Srinivas sir to take over and continue.
Thank you, Ashish, for your introduction, and thank you, Sanjay Nikam, for his nice words for both of them. Coming to the panel on this particular topic, and I, of course, once again congratulate, I have done that in the beginning of this particular webinar, that I congratulate the WRC for taking this initiative on behalf of PDC, Professional Development Committee of ICAI. And about the technology for which you had a session, I will once again say that Institute has set aside about 30 crores for giving technology to SMPs free of charge. And we will, of course, increase this amount if it is necessary over the period. And secondly, I will say that several parts of this technology will be soon available through either committee for members in practice and other committees. And you will get all that. I think within next 2 years, we should go digital. All of us should go for virtual offices, and technology will be a part of our life. But coming back to our today's topic on of Ind-AS and opportunities in Ind-AS, I was initially thinking when the WRC suggested this particular topic as a particular subject for all the opportunities. I was saying that this is already part of our study material, part of our recent chartered accountants. Those students who passed recently chartered accountancy would know this subject. There is a separate paper also, which can be selective paper, which you can take in this subject. And that's why some of the very, very young chartered accountants who passed in last 3 years may be knowing about this more. But of course, the initiative in India started long back. More than a decade back, and therefore all of us should be aware of this as a subject. But whether this can be taken as a career opportunity or not is today's topic for discussion. And therefore I will request all the panelists, Rammohan Bhave sir, Parag Kulkarni, Harshad Tekwani, to take this forward as to for us, all of us who have not recently passed, to see whether, but who are say less than 35 today, and want to see whether this is a good career option for them, and we will develop on that. I will take the questions to all, either one of them, and others, unless others can also come in and reply. We have less than 35 minutes, about 35 minutes to go for this particular session to complete, 35 to 40 minutes, not more than that. And therefore, I have divided the questions into around about 5 parts. One is a preliminary about Ind-AS, IFRS. A second is about learning, how we can do. Third is about the opportunities that we may get in this area of service or practice. And then, of course, the other aspect relating to income and qualities required, etc., for doing this particular practice. To start with, I'll start with the start with any. I can start either with any one of you. All of you are so well versed in the topic. First question is, what is really this Ind AS? We already had AS in this country for a long time, and India is one country which has developed its accounting standard. If you really ask me, this is one of the very rare country which has developed over 1949. Our institute started. From that date, we have developed these accounting standard over the years. Now, why there was a sudden need for Ind AS is to be understood in this particular first 7 minutes or 10 minutes. And here I am asking a question to Parag. What is this Ind AS and why Ind AS? Parag.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much, Central Council member and today's moderator, Srinivas Joshi sir. I would like to also extend thanks to WRC Chairman Lalit Bajaj, Vice Chairman Vishal Doshi, and the Regional Council member who was present, Murtuza ji, coordinator for today's program, Ashish Bakliwal, and my co-panelists, Harshad and Ramon Bhagas. Coming back to your question on what is Ind AS, to be honest, Ind AS is nothing but just an acronym to the better version of accounting standard, that is Indian Accounting Standard. So Ind AS, in a very simplistic language, is an Indian version of global accounting standards, which were notified by Ministry of Corporate Affairs with its GSR dated 16 February 2015. As far as the codification goes, there were 14 numbers, but recently 3 standards were replaced by 2 new standards. So as an introductory part, I would say Ind AS is a global version of accounting standards, and in terms of number, there are 39. That's my opening remark.
Yeah. Thank you. My second question is to Bhave sir. I hope he's there. I can't see him. Is Ramon Bhave sir there? I think we have lost him. So I think Parag can still answer the second one because I can't see Ramon Bhave sir there. What is this? What is the IFRS, and how many countries really adopted this IFRS, and therefore whether India was forced to do so? What do you feel about IFRS as a concept, and what is the world scenario on IFRS?
Okay, allow me to be a little elaborate on this. IFRS was previously named as International Accounting Standards. In year 1973, IASC, International Accounting Standard Committee, was established, which started issuing standards, and we called them as IS. Subsequently, this committee was taken over by the board in year 2002, and then board started issuing standard, to which we call IFRS. Now, presently, 166 jurisdictions across say to have adopted 144 jurisdictions.
Whoever is speaking can unmute, others can mute themselves.
Approximately 87% of these jurisdictions require IFRS standards for all or most of the domestic publicly accountable entities, which means listed entities or financial institutions in their capital market. Now, unfortunately, India is not considered to be a part of those 144 countries. Bhutan will begin its IFRS standards in year 2021. There are 12 jurisdictions that permit rather than require IFRS standards, which include Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Guatemala, Honduras, Japan, Madagascar, Panama, Paraguay, Switzerland, and some 2-3 other names. Uzbekistan jurisdiction requires IFRS standards for financial institutions, but not for listed companies. Thailand is in the process of adopting IFRS standards in full, and Indonesia is also in the process of converging its national standards substantially, but not entirely, with IFRS standards. And finally, there are 7 jurisdictions where they don't use IFRS, rather they use national or regional standards, which includes Bolivia, China, Egypt, India, Macau SAR, United States, and Vietnam. So that's a global view of 166 jurisdiction on its applicability towards IFRS.
So from your answer, I feel that means there is a huge scope for Ind AS or IFRS, or those who learn Ind AS to understand IFRS as well. And therefore, now Bhave sir is there with us. So I'll request Bhave sir to tell us if there is a huge scope for IFRS in various countries, and India has something different. It's called Ind AS. So what is really, sir, in very short time, can you tell us what is the real difference and why India doesn't want to go directly for IFRS as the standards in India, and why Why we are talking of something else, what other than what word is saying? And is it something completely different? That means whether I will have to study both the standards in detail again. Bhave sir?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can
You can talk, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
you can talk, sir.
Frankly, the Ind AS has been converged with IFRS, and no doubt there are few differences, but the differences are not many, more so from the student's perspective, because after all, the basic framework adopted, or the standard numbers adopted, or most of the provisions adopted, or the principles like substance over form, or controlled entity, or global over local practices, they are same and similar. Similarly, the definition of subsidiary which is changed, or principle over rules, in that respect Ind AS completely is in sync with IFRS. So no doubt some changes had to be made which suited the Indian situation, and they are, according to me, very minuscule, and therefore for a student it is not very difficult actually to study both together, and ICAI has been doing already a wonderful job in this regard. There is a Ind AS paper in final, and even the GFRS paper 6E optional available, and the amount of scope which is available to this is so high that people who have studied Ind AS also are going and doing excellent jobs in foreign countries. I know many of them have moved from KPO from India to London. Many of them have gone to Canada. Quite a lot have gone to Gulf. Major people have gone in Europe, East Europe. I was myself in Europe for some time, and I know that how much demand is there and how many Indians were coming there in various countries. So the IFRS and Ind AS difference doesn't matter much from the young person's career plan. Maybe at the top level, with finalizing the very complicated one-odd balance sheet, the few differences matter. Like, for example, the treatment of goodwill, when the goodwill is negative, or the case where the loans or current liabilities have been defaulted, and therefore the whole loan becoming due. So barring that, I think for the young members level, there is practically no change. Minutely, if one can follow the change. So in short,
Right, sir. Thanks a lot. Parag, what is the difference between the rule-based standard and principle-based standard, and which are better according to you? And what is the whether our AS is more rule-based, or whether US GAAP is more rule-based, and what about IFRS, whether it's principle-based? Whether such kind of differences at principal level, whether at global level, such things happen? Parag?
Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting question where we try to differentiate between the principle-based and rule-based standards. To be honest, it doesn't mean that those standards which are rule-based actually forget the principle of an accounting. The substance over form still remains as a principle when we speak about a rule-based, but we try to quantify it, or we try to create a rule around that principle. So when I look at US GAAP standard, or the 7 countries which I quoted in my previous answer, which primarily use the regional or domestic standards, where the the use or utility of the rule-based standard is bigger, better, and sharper than the principle-based standards, I still see that rules are formed around the principles. For example, the concept of lease in IFRS or an Indian GAAP is based on the substance over form, where we try to analyze it as per the previous GAAP, what is a finance lease, what is operating lease, and now as per the new IFRS 16 or Ind AS 116, we try to analyze whether the lease is and whether you should apply the new standard on the basis of the substance. Conversely, in case of US GAAP, they have given a rules like if the 90% of the value is equivalent to 90% of the present value is matching with the fair value, then you please classify it something like a finance lease. So I would say, if we have to look at from the specs of which is better for the compliance purpose and for making it more comparable, I'm still inclined towards the rule-based standards, because while applying the principle-based standards, somehow unfortunately I have seen professionals misusing the principles and offering a lot of flexibility towards its interpretation and then abusing some of the rules or principles that are given in IFRS. So that's why US GAAP still holds its importance in the national market over IFRS. And US still remains dominant and adamant in telling the international world that yes, we are in the process of converging towards IFRS, but our convergence is not the way India did or not the way Canada did. We will change our accounting standards by creating new rules and better rules, such that the conclusions are rule based and conclusions to the principle based standard will ultimately equate with each.
Okay, thank you, Parag. Now the critical question that comes up for all of us, that we are having this new, because we should understand this, to understand this better. We were trying to now go through various the annual reports, and we are all understand that all the listed companies on Indian stock exchanges use Ind AS, for example. You feel that this adoption of Ind AS has really resulted into has resulted into something that affected their results substantially, because we heard initially that this particular adoption from AS to Ind AS or IFRS would change their result drastically, and a profit making can be a loss making, loss making can be a profit making. So whether the results really change so drastically between various accounting standards, because we get confused as to if accounting is same everywhere, why the results should change so heavily. I will start with Harshad ji with this question as to what is the real impact on companies about this, so that when we learn this particular topic, we should understand what is the difference, because if we come from AS background and try to learn this particular Ind AS or IFRS and we want to finalize accounts, what would be the change in the result which we have to explain to board? Arshad ji, can you start with this?
If I say the impact over the result, it was basically sector to sector. So some sectors had a huge impact, some sectors had no impact. So for example, if I take an telecom sector, now when India's 115 was notified and it was to be implemented, the telecom sector's policies, like how they recognize the revenue. So for example, today if you are getting SMS, you are getting recharge balance, you are getting data, the bundle service, how you are recognizing that bundle service, how the revenue is being recognized, in which way. So everything changed for the telecom sector. Same with the India's 116 when the lease standard came. So it was for companies, they were who were mostly into the leases, who were having a use of lease contracts. Their accounting impact was huge. So I was one of the in working in one of the company. It was tool and travelism company. It used to have a kiosk desk everywhere. It has a rent agreement with all the kiosks. So each and everywhere, so the impact used to be quantified, and everywhere it was a huge impact. So impact will depend upon industry to industry, and it will depend based on the standard. Some industry had a very big impact, and some has very minimal.
Okay, Parag, you want to say something on this? Parag,
Yeah, sure. I mean,
on impact on various industries of
yes,
this
of
change
course.
taken by India?
Yeah, so long back when we carried the research, somewhere in year 2019, that is 2 years after the adoption. The first year of the India's presentation happened for annual report 2017, and second for 2018. So I would say on an average we have seen, when we did the analysis of approximately 3,000 companies, approximately on an average minimum 100 crore was addition to the net worth of the company. So that's given in the first time adoption in this 101. As a result of which, primarily you are shifting from the cost-based accounting to fair value accounting. Okay, and I think that was the key difference when we are speaking about how the way we have accounting historically under accounting standards, and now we are moving into the newer version of accounting standard, that is Ind AS. So that was the impact on net worth. The current ratios have also dramatically changed because of the classification of few liabilities from non-current to current. and the way we were looking at equity have also undergone a change, subsequently impacting the debt equity ratio. For example, take the consideration of preference shares, which is redeemable, and suddenly you start accounting it and calling it as a financial liability, definitely impacts such kind of the long term solvency ratios. So what is an impact is a good question, but how the way financial institutions have captured this impact and analyzed it was far larger questions for all of us. And I think answer to that question still remains open, because impact, like Harshad quite rightly said, differs from industry to industry. So does it mean that the credit appraisal should be now flagship and should be observed from an industry to industry, or should it be generic for all the companies like it was previously? So yes, impact still remains.
Yeah, good. Bhave sir, what is the roadmap of in India about Ind AS of this, and when all the companies would come under Ind AS, or so that this becomes a larger opportunity for chartered accountant as a group? What is the whole roadmap of Ind AS in India?
Okay. I think the per se, if we talk about corporates, the roadmap is very, very clear, because there was a voluntary adoption in the first year when Arun Jaitley ji declared it first time. Then and there are only 4 companies adopted it voluntarily. I mean, to my memory, they were Crompton's and Reliance Engineering and some others. Then came the turn of all the companies having more than 500 crore net worth. So they had to get covered in the next year. Then came the listed companies, all remaining, not of course SMEs, but all remaining listed companies, and the unlisted companies about 250 crore net worth. Now we were doing just an analysis, because there are a lot of valuations also happening, fair valuations. The total companies in India are in the range of 12 to 13 lakhs. And broad estimate based on the Google searches, out of which maybe another 2-3 lakhs are non-filing or shell or very little activity. I would rather put it that way. So 9 lakhs are left. The listed companies are something like 7,651. So 7,000 say. And if I take the average number of group companies per listed company, as per my study, it is in the range of 15 to 20. Of course, there are companies like Reliance who have got huge number of group companies. I won't venture to make a figure here. But around 1 lakh companies, listed companies plus its group companies, have already got covered. Now left out is how many are the companies which are having a net worth about 250 and unlisted. So that calculation, as per the various studies which have been shown, is around 70,000. And average number of subsidiaries or group companies they have is around 3. So
Sir, we lost him again.
Yeah, I think we lost him for the time being. He will come back. We will go to learning now. He has tried to explain that there is a very good opportunity for Indian chartered accountants to go into this area, considering lakhs and lakhs companies would be finally covered in this. In the learnings, you are a very young chartered accountant. You have learned this hard way and in a very young age. This and valuation both. So I'm asking you, what learning and education is required in Ind AS in India? How I can go into this area? Parag.
Yeah.
And then Harshad.
Yeah. So, to be honest,
because we are guiding, remember, the young chartered accountants. So your experience would be more relevant. Bhave sir, done it over 40 years. But at least let us see what you want to say, Parag, on this learning and education. Yes.
So, like you said that we are primarily concerned about the young members here. It is the definition of young members like ICAI defines it. I believe that almost all those who are attending today's conference, they are somewhere ranging between 20 years to 30 years or so. So fortunately, ICAI has introduced most of the Indian accounting standards and in detail explanation into their CA final. But I equally understand that.
Just a minute, Parag. Parag, just a minute. Murtuza ji, can you mute everybody and then unmute Parag? Because I think there is a disturbance. We can't listen to Parag clearly. Yeah.
Sir, actually,
Okay. Parag ji, continue. Yeah. Parag, continue.
Murtuza ji, with your permission, can I continue?
yes, please.
Yeah. So fortunately, ICAI has covered in detailed, explanations and a lot of case studies in CA final, the new syllabus, and consequent to which I believe that all those who are completing their CA course, maybe in last 2 years or so, they are quite well equipped, at least academically, to interpret maybe the practical challenges that are typically posed in Indian accounting standards. But apart from that, ICAI is also simultaneously conducting a lot of seminars through their study circles and regular conferences. ICAI also has a specific certification course for all those who want to achieve the specialized knowledge in this. It's a certificate course on Indian accounting standards which run approximately 8 to 10 days, and then ultimately you have to write an examination. I think Harshad or Bhave sir can speak more on some other courses offered by some other institute, but I'll definitely speak more on the course offered by ICAI. If we are specifically speaking on this, ICAI also has, I think, some free portal where you can actually log in and view the content of almost all accounting standards. A lot of seminars are also hosted by ICAI. I remember doing the first IFRS webinar, I think long back in year 2013-14, where we did it from IFRS. So as far as learning goes, I strongly recommend everyone that don't go purely for learning. Go learning along with the earning, where you get a job profile and then hands-on experience in IFRS or Ind AS is quite important, or it is quite relevant. Otherwise, it simply remains, the academic learning. You can't understand the H accounting, or you can't understand, let's say, ECL working until and unless you actually jump into those calculations, because they are so complex in nature. Understanding that previously you are accounting something at a cost and now accounting at a fair value, even non-CS can understand that. But true professionalism is analyzed, it is questioned, and I would say, it is challenged only when you actually start working with such listed companies or with such index adoption or review assignments. Over to you, Harshad and Bhave sir, to speak on the same front.
Yeah, Harshad. Harshad, can you say something on? Yeah.
As correctly said by the Parag sir, the institute had provided the course in diploma in the IFRS. Same there is another course that is ACCA Global gives in the diploma in the IFRS. Okay. Now there are materials available. One can learn from the materials and the Ind AS and the IFRS given on the portals, like in the MCA website, the ICAI website hosts the Ind AS, bare text. One can also learn from the ITFG's bulletin. So ITFG provides some clarification where there is a dispute. So one can learn from that also that there are disputes. So what is the resolution for that dispute? What was the query? How the query was resolved? Same goes with the IFRS. There's the IFRS interpretation committee which provides such. So there are update materials, update news comes. What was the change? What is the current position? So by this, and one important thing is the practical exposure. Unless and until you don't have a practical exposure in your hand, you won't be able to understand the standard fully. Some other courses like some other courses like there is one more this ACA from England and Wales, Institute of Chartered Accountants from England and Wales. In that also you can learn from IFRS, learn about IFRS.
Okay, thank you. Bhave sir, we are worried that how frequently IFRS changes. He said there are updates available. How frequently we get updates, and how is it difficult to keep a track of it as a person who is learning this Ind AS or IFRS? Bhave sir, I think I don't know. Bhave sir, can you tell us about how frequently are the updates available, and whether there are any several interpretational issues in this particular IFRS, and whether it is very difficult subject per se because of that.
Okay. I mean, first of all, I would say how many are the updates? Luckily, and the good news for the young members is the major updates, that is Ind AS 109, Ind AS 1 and Ind AS 116, that is revenue, lease and financial instruments, are already settled, stabilized. So they don't have to worry too much like that. Under income tax, we used to say, every year income tax ready reckoner itself is a big book. Like that, but when it comes to the complex case studies, IFRS and Ind AS becomes a very enjoyable journey. So like Hitesh already said that a practical experience makes a difference, no doubt. I mean, like even yesterday
Sir, if
when
you
we were
can,
implementing
sir,
one case, we
Bhave sir,
yes.
Bhave sir, can I request you if you can switch on your camera, I will be able to hear you better, sir. If you can switch off your camera,
It's
sir.
okay. It's okay. Currently, it's okay.
Which off the camera?
Currently, it's okay. Okay, you go ahead. Go ahead. But he's right. If you switch
Okay,
off
is
your
that okay
camera,
now?
yeah, it's okay. Okay.
I have
You can
switched
go
off the
ahead.
camera. Is that okay? Okay.
Yes, it's
Yeah.
okay. You go ahead. Huh.
Yeah. So first of all, it is not very difficult now because some major standards have settled. Secondly, if somebody uses common sense, then it is easy to learn Ind AS and IFRS, because the beauty which has been brought in by Ind AS and IFRS, of course, is transparency. Okay. So instead of the biggest challenge was there was some business decision happening and then some executive was taken and they were translated into the books of accounts by way of something. Now, if the documentation is in line with the actual action happened, then you will get the real fair view. But what used to happen was the agreement was not necessarily showing perfect matching with the agreement. And this is where the substance-based accounting standard make a difference. And more so in the revenue and lease cases, as well as instrument case and the consolidation case. And in the meantime, I had lost a little bit of a touch, but the question is that the unlisted companies by way of consolidation have found a major challenge, and that challenge people will have to overcome, and that is where the young members will face the challenge, because implementing and getting it converted properly is going to be a challenge. So common sense will take care. Amendments are not too many, and the further journey left out is banks, insurance, and are we going to cover the companies below 250 crore net worth? At least the opinion which has been being thought over by NACA's chairman Amarjit Chopra ji is at least we should cover the companies which are in losses or the companies which have got bank loans. I mean, they are not getting covered at all if they are below 250 crores. So that has to expected to come in. And the last sentence I'll make is, however, very smartly the previous accounting standards are also being gradually changed in such a way that they are converging also with Ind AS. So I think the journey is very fast. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks a lot. I think let us go quickly to the opportunities part. First to Parag, what are the opportunities you feel in practice of Ind AS? And Harshad, I'll ask, you are in service, and I will ask you what are the opportunities in service later on. So Parag, what are the opportunities for those who learn Ind AS in practice? What are the areas in which they can practice? Because Bhave sir said something about so many difficulties that the subsidiaries who are not public listed companies would get into converting into Ind AS or IFRS. Can you tell us more on what are the opportunities the CAs have?
Yeah, I'll try to segregate this discussion into two parts. One is the opportunities available to have the domestic practice in India, and also speak about some of the practice that we do in Europe, Singapore, and USA, because I believe that that will also open up some another perspective to the young chartered accountants who are practicing here. So coming and discussing on the first approach, domestic practice. Now, unfortunately, those who are now thinking to join the Ind AS practice, for them the implementation phase is over. Because as far as the implementation of banks and insurance companies is considered, it has been deferred, and we are not really sure when and when such kind of implementation would happen. So the right approach to practice on Ind AS is, if at all you are either auditor of a listed company or auditor of a company having net worth more than 250 crore, or you are working in a practice with such audit firm, or secondly, you are neither auditor, you are nor working with the audit firm, but you are advisor to these companies. So in either of these two capacities, definitely you can perform the work. Now, personally, I am not working as an auditor. So what kind of advisory role that we provide? The first is in the consolidation. I understand that many peer groups around the city where I am based, they need some handholding support in consolidation, and unfortunately, the existing staff is so much overwhelmed with the routine transactions, and despite the fact that they have some specialists in the consolidation, the volume of disclosure, the volume of intercompany transaction, its elimination, and maybe not having a right tool, the software tool for consolidation of various entities and joint ventures and maybe foreign entities, that's where possibly they require our help. And these kinds of few assignments that we are performing for last 3-4 years, primarily on the consolidation side. Secondly, as it goes on a consolidation, which is majorly of a numerical exercise in the Microsoft Excel, you also some of the clients have also requested us for the documentation, because they need to have someone who can bridge the gap between them as a client and then the auditor who possibly as a watchdog. So they need someone who can possibly understand, help them document up to the level of the expectation of the auditor, and also they need an advocate who can possibly come up and principally argue on client's behalf as an advisor for few of the treatments where the choices, options, and the flexibility of interpretation is available. That doesn't mean, as I previously said, that we should abuse those standards, but principally and logically, whatever, wherever some interpretations are required, that's where the second practice area lies. Third practice area where we are practicing is the ECL model, that is expected credit loss model. It is quite complex, and it is a combination of both, that is a qualitative understanding of the default made by your debtors, the analyzing the creditworthiness of your debtors, and then converting that qualitative analysis or the credit appraisal into quantitative ECL based model, which takes into account not only the default on account of the payment, but also delay in case of the payment. So ECL tries to capture two kinds of default. One is a person, we believe that he is not at all going to pay. And secondly, we know that he is going to pay, but he is not going to pay on due date. So there is a delay in the payment, but a delay has a time cost. So I think these are 2-3 areas where you can purely practice on the Ind AS side. The related area is also on the valuation side. Few of the valuations are definitely necessary under Ind AS. For example, all equity instruments must be fair valued, and I think that's the allied area. So I would say that's a quick perspective from the practitioner side, but huge amount of work, huge amount of opportunity are present in the audit, in an audit company. I strongly recommend anyone who is newly completed chartered accountancy course, he should join an audit company where the audit of listed company is present, and if he can perform and he can definitely showcase that he has a thorough knowledge of Ind AS, he will definitely place with such audit clientele, and he soon will get a tremendous exposure in this particular area.
Right, good, Parag. Now, Harshal, you want to say about opportunities in employment sector for those who want to learn Ind AS? Yeah.
Yes, as correctly said by Parag sir, so working as an auditor for a company, so you can be an employment in a CA firms where they are the auditor of the listed company. You can be the part of the audit team where you will be handling working on the financial statement, Ind AS, how to draft the financial statement. You will get a in-depth knowledge of the Ind AS. Secondly, you can work. Most of the companies has as advisory services where you provide the advisory services. So you can work in such firms where they provide the advisory services to the client, and there also you will get a detailed knowledge about the Ind AS where of the matters they provide the advisory upon. Now, basically, if I say the service and employment opportunities are not only situated till India, they are also situated, you can also get an opportunity in the Gulf countries, because Gulf countries are also following IFRS, which are, same on a similar note of the Ind AS. also on the European countries, because they are also following the direct version of the IFRS. So if you have a good knowledge of the India, you might get a chance, to move to the Gulf countries or another some country where they follow the IFRS or the same version of the like this standard.
Right, good. I think again and again we are losing Bhavesh sir. Bhavesh sir, if you are there,
No, I'm
I
here.
think, yeah. Can you tell us
I'm there.
the opportunities? Sir, you have worked outside India for many years. Can you tell us the opportunities for Indian Chartered Accountant outside India in this field?
Yeah, sure. I'm listening.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah, you continue.
So I would, split the opportunities between three parts, as I said sometime before. Canada on one hand, Gulf on second side, and Europe on the third. Okay. Interestingly, USA there are challenges because the number of CPAs are quite high. Whereas Australia and New Zealand requires their own these things. But some people have gone to Singapore, Hong Kong, Thailand, Myanmar also. So predominantly the people who are good at Ind AS and IFRS, they are able to, get into the major opportunities again arising out of consolidation, as rightly said. And there are many companies where the scope arises because one, Indians are hard workers. Second, Indians accounting acumen is great. And to be frank with you, proud to say that the toughest examination in the world they have passed, and that too merit based with no reservation or quota, that is Indian Chartered Accountants. So obviously they are already tested well, okay, and therefore they definitely shine. Now, how do they go overseas? I will give you some tricks and tips, which I would love to give it here. Is that first, question one, find out through LinkedIn who are the Indian entrepreneurs in those countries. I'm talking primarily about Europe and Canada. Then find out through LinkedIn lots of people who are already working there. And once you develop those connections and send your CVs with well presented Ind AS and IFRS knowledge, conceptual knowledge plus some implementation, then the opportunities are galore, unlimited, frankly. And in fact, Nigeria, South Africa, Gulf, then again, I know that I had been in Bulgaria. So Bulgaria, Serbia, Holland, France, Poland, Austria. So there are umpteen countries. Ireland, one banker has gone who was doing IFRS. Switzerland, many people from Credit Suisse are going. Bermuda, Crompton Greaves took a lot of people. So opportunities are unlimited. Of course, everybody may not have the possibility of running into these areas. Very broadly speaking, if today I'm slightly touching the local opportunities also, if overall today there are 100 positions, then out of that 30 are in Big Fours and 30 are in KPO stroke shared services. So 60, around 10 are in industry. Of the vacancies of chartered accountants are in accounts and audit, and since obviously small companies cannot afford chartered accountants, they are of course with big companies, and obviously they are into the level of IFRS index coverage, and the remaining 5% in domestic tax, 10% in international tax, and around 20% or 15% in GST. So you can see here that 7 out of every 10 chartered accountants go to the accounting and audit, and those who are going out of India by and large are going for accounting and audit only. So the vacancies are huge. Very fact that in December 19, when the international conference happened of our institute, all the chapters had come here, and those stories we have heard, some of the young members were there, they were amazed to see the amount of opportunities there. Yes.
Yeah, great sir. Parag, you also work outside India. Can you tell us more on opportunities outside India?
Yeah, first of all, I want to be very candid and honest when I speak this, because I have seen many young members joining courses having a dream of going out of India. So I think it's not a magic wand where you kind of do IFRS course and suddenly you can go out of India. Rather, it was quite difficult for me to open up the practice in England and then compete at that level. And similarly, I believe that at the industry level also that's the same case. Most of those who have gone there or to whom we have recommended to go out of India, they primarily have gone because they were working here in India in one of the company, and with similar company they have gone on the second man. So I think we should offer a justified, I would say, suggestion to all those members who are listening. I strongly recommend that identify a company with whom you can work here, and then subsequently maybe the same company can send you on a secondment. That is the best possible way out. Don't just go out and apply to any global company. They are not going to recruit, because working outside India is a twofold challenge. One is you need to have an intellect, but secondly an administrative challenge of a visa. And in today's terms, it's not quite easy to actually get a working visa in various glorified countries. So I think the challenges that we faced there was, first of all, there is a discrimination. I will be very frank with you, but like Mr. Bhagwe said, that Indian entrepreneurs tend to give opportunities to the Indian talent, and this is how we got an opportunity to work there. And once you prove your merit, sooner or later industry is going to kind of invite you. So slowly we then started working in some of the areas, for example, SOX compliance. Now some companies of Europe are listed on New York Stock Exchange, and New York Stock Exchange requires all those companies to have an accounting manual and SOX compliance. So when I say SOX compliance, your internal processes, your accounting should be correlated, and that's where we perform few of the assignments. So I would say we of course cannot have a work of implementation, because IFRS is already implemented in those developed nations. I think the work that we can seek forward is like the hand-holding support, some of the advisory where new standards came up like IFRS 16 and IFRS 15, where we offered few of the opinions. But like I said, they are not 100 in numbers. I'll be very honest, from my company, we offered only 7 opinions outside India. Okay. I just don't want to offer a fake dreams to everyone who is listening. I think it's a long-term goal where you establish your international capabilities, you hone yourself with international skill sets and accounting standards, and sooner or later, with the help of areas or skill sets allied, which, for example, if you want to become CFO and organization of a global company, only accounting standards cannot help you. And similarly, only accounting standards cannot definitely help you to get a job outside India. So along with IFRS, if you have those additional skills, IFRS become fundamental for any international job. Because of the availability of additional skill sets, definitely you can be pulled in that particular company.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I think Bhave sir explained about opportunities in employment, which are huge, and you explained about the practice opportunities outside India. Do you feel, last 2 quick questions before we close, that whether all of you feel that the income levels for those who take up this as a career would be higher than the normal other chartered accountants on an average, whether this chartered accountant who has taken up this as a career, Ind AS or IFRS, will he be better off than the other CAs who have taken other careers in their profession? All 3 of you can say yes, no, whatever, and yes or no, because this is only yes or no, because all of you have worked in that area, you know. So Parag, you feel that this is a much better thing to do in life?
I think, see, at the the initial level, that is when people are seeking employment, unfortunately the income level is not decided on the basis of the special skill sets that you have, because usually all of them have the benchmark the salary level, and this is how people get recruited. But having this skill set definitely help you to prove your requirement, prove your demand in that particular organization. And trust me, you require patience and analytical skills in order to prove yourself into this area. Sooner or later, you will become responsible figure for quarterly financials, for annual financials, for hand-holding with the auditors and consultants. And this is how the more responsibilities, as soon as you start shouldering in, I think that should equally represent, or that should equally get reflected in your income level. And trust me, when you become an important person because you understand it, than others around you who can't understand because of the knowledge of this subject, yes, income level goes up. but as I said, as I'm speaking to young members, this doesn't mean that at the initial level you can see the difference in the income level just because you know IFRS. That's not going to
Okay,
happen.
great. Harshad, you want to say something on this? You have been in industry. What is your experience?
I'll say if you are on the correct place, you will get a correct amount. So it totally upon the place you are going to. Now today
Like with
there are
Murtuza, for example. Like for example, if you are with Murtuza, you'll get right amount. Achal. Okay.
Yeah,
In his
correctly said,
company
sir.
productivity. How much business? Yeah, in a lighter way. Yeah. Okay. Okay, you continue.
So yes, sir. Correctly. If you are on the correct place, na, if you are on for the correct job. So for example, the company is getting a huge amount of assignments where they are, specific NDS complex assignments where the company comes, we are stuck in the NDS, we are stuck in the reporting. Please help us. And company is famous for that, and you are onto that place, you will definitely get a handsome amount. That's for sure. So it's totally depends upon where you are employed and what sort of a job profile you are holding as of now. And if everything is good, you can get a very handsome amount compared to other fields.
Very good. Very good. Thanks a lot. The last and quick question to all three of you. What personal qualities you feel you need to go into this type of practice of Ind-AS? Because I started this particular course yesterday, saying that each opportunity requires a particular quality. Now, for example, if you want to go to internal audit and suppose forensic audits, you need hawk's eye. It's different than a statutory auditor finding a fraud. Internal auditor would be having a fraud examiner, or if you are a forensic auditor, you have a different quality required to get that kind of insight and get the results out of it. So here for Ind-AS IFRS, like I said, in any tax laws which you want to learn, you have different skill set required. In the IT field, information technology, different skill set and different personal qualities. Whether you feel that Harshad, there is any special quality required here in this particular opportunity, or you feel that normal chartered accountant is okay? I mean, whatever you pass, is it okay for this? Because I know Parag, I'll ask him this because he learned it hard way. Only two things, valuation and Ind-AS, and today he is extremely successful. So I'm just asking you whether we need special qualities.
So the special quality, I'll say, is quality of the logic. So logic behind the standard. You need to understand the logic behind the standard, what it is asking, why it is asking. So if standard is asking for a purpose, there is a purpose, a disclosure is there. So as I said, we have a principle-based standard where the judgments are involved. So judgments requires, if your concept is clear, if your logic is clear, you can easily apply the principles and you can easily excel in those things. So if you have a quality of the, understanding the logic, you will gradually excel.
Right. Thanks a lot. Parag, anything you want to add on the quality front?
I would say that, maybe, the articulation skill is something that I would strongly, recommend to hone, because in order to write an opinion, primarily, which is a basic need to work as an advisor, you should be able to articulate your point of view, and you should have an ability to persuade other person in such a manner that ultimately he accepts in a logical manner. Secondly, I would say that you should have an ability to still stand and sit there to read those 3,000 pages of IFRS, which in itself is, kind of a huge task. So only when you are determined and you truly want to kind of perform or maybe, to be practice here, I think that minimum 6 months kind of are required to at least have the first reading. I recommend everyone using Red Book issued by IFRS organization. There are, by the way, 3 books which are issued. One is Red Book, another is Blue Book, and third is Green Book. Typically, I use Red Book because that includes the standards which are issued by IFRS organization, and I also use a lot of basis of conclusion, that is a part B of that book, in order to understand why it is what it is. When I read the standard, of course, I mean, Harshad, can you please show that green? Yeah, to everyone.
So I have a green book.
So of course, when I read the standard, it primarily tells me what it is. But when I go behind the logic to understand why it is what it is, I think that's where, I'm actually working on my skill sets about opinion writing. There is nothing much. I would say that all those qualities that help you to become chartered accountant, it's only the extension of those qualities that truly can help you to become a good advisor in this particular field.
Right. Again, I think we have lost Ramon Bhave. With this, I will. Yeah, are you there? You are back. Great. Do you have any final concluding remarks to be made on this particular opportunity, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Bhave, sir?
Certainly.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah. Whatever.
there are two things I would like to especially add in the last two questions and also make some kind of final summary. See, one is that our course, Chartered Accountancy, and I'm more looking from the young members' perspective. So, young member, like said, 0 to 5 years experience. And since 1,000 are there, as you told me, quite a lot happens in their articleship because the course content is same, the passing efforts required are similar, but when it comes to the articleship, it differs from the excellent exposure to the different exposure also. And typically, if the number of, articleship is done very vigilantly, then that person always succeeds better than others. Of course, both have to pass. But if you have to compare two people, the person who has a better articleship, so far as both of them pass, will do better generally. There can always be exceptions, which we will keep aside. The second part is that a chartered accountant, young chartered accountant, and I call it FACT, finance, accounting, costing, taxation. Now, I didn't use C word, but I would say budgeting, MIS, costing, etc. So if a young chartered accountant goes into finance, accounting, and accounting including auditing, I would say, costing and taxation, the interesting part is, we were talking about higher salaries. If the 70% vacancies are in accounts and audits, then at least the chartered accountant going for this field has much higher choice. Whereas in a finance field pure, there are MBA finance to compete. In the taxation field, unless you are from an international tax exposure, it is very difficult to get a job unless you really have excelled well there. So the sheer size of the percentage of vacancies itself make a difference in the job. And since you have told me to finally conclude, I would say it is the best career. And I would say those, if any of them are here yet to pass, then 6E is the choice, I would say. And the people who are going diligently, and rightly said by Harshit as well as Parag, that if there is a logical common sense there, then anybody will succeed. And the course like CA anyway imbibes it. Yes.
Right, sir. Thanks a lot, Ramon Bhave, sir. Also Parag Kulkarni and Harshit Tekwani for this excellent deliberation that all of you had with us. And now I'll request Murtuza Kachwala to close this particular session. In fact, the whole seminar, 2 days webinar as such.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So, sir, first I'll request Ashish to do a vote of thanks for this session, and then I'll finally close the whole program. Ashish, over to you for the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. I would say here that we have all the experts. Srinivas sir is expert in asking questions. So he properly moderated the session and asked the questions which are required by young minds, which comes in young mind. And I also felt somewhere that why should we go for IFRS? How will it benefit to us? What are the opportunities? The questions asked by you, sir, is very apt and very good for the young member's mind. I think you are a true leader who can read the mind of young people. That is why you are the Central Council member, sir. And apart from you, Bhave sir is like authority.
I think we lost Ashish. Okay.
Yes, looks like we have lost Ashish.
Yeah, let me
He will
continue.
be back. Yeah. And you continue in the meanwhile.
Yes. So
He will be
let
back.
me also, yes, one by one, let me first thank the Professional Development Committee and the Chairman of Professional Development Committee, Srinivas Joshi sir, for really organizing this excellent program for all the young guys, and thank you, sir. I also thank all the team of ICAI and the WRC team and the IT team for all the support to ensure that this webinar continued for 2 days. Before I go to the other experts, let me thank all the participants for patiently being there. 980 registrations, and yesterday we had 928 people at one point in time glued in. I will get the numbers for today as well, but really thank you all the participants and for your support and for staying together. I also want to thank all the 3 coordinators, Shekhar Patwardhan, Sanjay Nikam and Ashish Bakliwal. Thank you for all your help and support and for staying through. Now let me come to the 3 expert panelists today. Harshad, again a dear friend, and the whole Harshad gives a lot of time and he comes as a regular speaker. His fiancée Prerna also does a lot of work for the institute, writes article. She is also associated with Tax Sutra as well, and currently also she is in an international location and she got a certificate from a university there. And even his would-be father-in-law, Kishore Pishori sir, he helps us tremendously at WIRC in a lot of career programming and all of those. So thank you, Arshad, and thank you to the whole family. Let me go to Parag, a very dear friend, and Parag also does a lot of help and support for ICAI, and an expert, and also his father, Kulkarni Saab, is a very, very dear friend, and he also helps us a lot on the ICAI front. So thank you, Parag, for your views today, and thank you for joining us. Let me move then finally to the senior most, that is Ram Mohan Bhave sir. He is also a dear friend, he is a guide, and he is also a critic. So anything, and he immediately sends me a message or picks up phone and tells me that this did not work well, and immediately we try to correct that. And Bhave sir, thank you very much for joining us today, for giving your inputs and always being there to help us and guide us in the right direction, Bhave sir. Sir, are you there?
Yeah, thank you. I'm there, yes.
So, yes. So, and I also would want to thank all the speakers and panelists in the last 2 days. And Joshi sir, thank you very much. And for any last words from you, sir, again back to you, since you are the chairman of the committee.
Nothing more. I will again remind you what you said yesterday, you and chairman, that we will continue with this kind of seminars, with this kind of webinars and opportunities. And we will present more and more opportunities to our young chartered accountants in coming days. And I'm very sure that WRC being the best region in the country, you will lead the whole country on that. Yeah, you want to say something? Yeah. So over to Muthusa, just close it. Yeah.
So actually Joshi sir told us that we covered 6 areas in 2 days, but there are some 28, 29 areas in which people, the young members can make their career. And so sir has requested us to organize programs on various, all those areas, and we'll definitely take that ahead, sir, and we'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we
Thanks
are happy to close
Thank
the
all
session.
of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thanks. Thank you all. Thank you all. Now in COVID, we have to learn again. Thank you. No
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's good.